What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories. 8JJK Chapter 221 Advertisement. Ryōmen is one of the 3 special jujutsu teachers who exist in the world. His strength is beyond doubt. Cursed spirit manipulation can control everything cursed spirit in the world. The cursed spirit, which is lower than his own rank, is almost under direct control. In the entire Fuso Jujutsu world, cursed spirit manipulation can be one of the top 10 among the many jujutsu. Although under Dispatch of Detained Spirits, cursed spirit manipulation seems a bit shallow. But it still cannot be denied. The power of Ryōmen and the horror of cursed spirit manipulation are obvious to all. There was once a cursed spirit riot in Shentao. Hundreds of second-level cursed spirits and first-level cursed spirits, like the tide, slaughtered, destroyed, and annihilated everything in the city. The 12-man squad of the Jujutsu Association who went to perform the task of removing the mask was almost instantly overwhelmed by the terrifying wave of cursed spirit. As for the academy, Ryōmen was only shot in 500. No one knew what happened after that day, but the only thing that can be determined is a total of 1,400 cursed spirits. None of them can get out of Shentao without control. Since then, Super Jujutsu teacher Ryōmen's deeds of killing the cursed tide alone are tied to the incident where Gojo Satoru once single-handedly killed more than a dozen cursed division killers. This is such an extremely powerful Jujutsu teacher, the only best friend of Gojo Satoru in the original book. Ryōmen, one of the 3 major Jujutsu divisions. At this moment, there is deep despair and shock in his eyes. Too strong. This is the only thought in his mind now. Ryōmen could perceive what kind of power the power condensed in the hands of the light and shadow behind him at this moment. Everything in the surroundings that had been shaking before the power was released began to break apart continuously. That gleam of golden light seemed to be the only brilliance. Users of cursed spirit manipulation should obediently hide away. Boy, boom. While speaking, the power in Yumeng's hands broke out in vain. That very devastating punch. Before Gojo Satoru arrived, he slammed into Ryōmen's back. Qianzhongjian moment. Rumble. Pung. That power was like a dam bursting a bank, letting the endless waves flood Ryōmen's body continuously. Click. At that moment, Ryōmen's body seemed to be hit by countless attacks that could not be seen by the naked eye at the same time. Under the extreme dazzling golden light, advertisement. The body fell heavily to the ground. Click, roar. In the midair, a huge cursed spirit that looked like a bat whizzed past and took advantage of Ryōmen, who was constantly falling from the air. Ryōmen, are you okay? Gojo saw this scene, his body turned back, and instantly appeared on the bat's body. Looking at lying on the cursed spirit, Ryōmen with a pale face asked anxiously. Ryōmen's face was a bit weak, but her face was still squinted like that eternal. He looked at Gojo Satoru, who was very anxious. For some reason, the corners of his mouth were slightly raised. Gojo, are you ready? You're going to go. Hearing his inexplicable words, Gojo Satoru's eyes suddenly flashed a light. This is a code unique to Gojo and Ryōmen. Are you ready? You are going to go. Of course it's ready, then I'm going. Cursed spirit operation explosion. Yamming in the sky, looking at these translucent cursed spirit clusters that did not know when, there was a little bit of playfulness in his eyes. After knowing that I could not bear the strength to strengthen myself, I chose to talk about the concealed cursed spirit densely distributed around me, in such a crisis of life and death. This character is really a bit remarkable, but this alone is not enough. Suddenly, a transparent cursed spirit began to emit a light, and the amount of light seemed to set off a horn for charging. The densely packed cursed spirit army lit up almost instantly at the same time. Rumble. Boom. Empty. The huge explosion is like death roses exploding in the void. The life of cursed spirit is sacrificing a doomsday tragedy. Rumble. That explosion, which was enough to annihilate dozens of meters of high-rise buildings, appeared crazily in the air. The space appeared a bit mottled, but the next moment. As if there is a palm that connects everything in the world. The palm of his hand slowly dipped in the endless explosion. Gently pinch in the void. Puff, advertisement. The frightening explosion sounded like a punctured balloon, and made a small whine. Then disappeared completely in the air. Yimeng's figure appeared in the air again, and the sound of such a violent explosion did not cause the slightest fluctuation in the body formed by his cursed power. Hey! Yimeng, who just walked out of the series of explosions. Seeing his eyes, a terrifying shock broke through the layers of void and rushed towards his head. Without avoiding, there was an inexplicable smile at the corner of his mouth. Click. Zzz. Gojo Satoru took advantage of Ryōmen's body to lay out the moment when the explosion started. Quickly appeared in the air. The power of the whole body and the curse power reached a high degree of coordination at this moment. He has never been in such a good state for a moment. This was the first and only time he felt the full limits of his he that he bombed at this moment can no longer be called the mere ultimate thrust. It is mixed with the power of non-existence, for the purpose of annihilating everything. Destroy. Rumble. Hurts with a diameter of up to tens of meters. It directly submerged Yimeng's body. The tyrannical gain strength tears layers of space. Erase everything. The space is like a cake cut by a knife's edge, and a deep scratch runs through everything. Did you make it? Nanami Kento put Shire and Sha Yuja behind him. Looking at the sky, the space that was torn apart again, and under the terrifying blow of Gojo Satoru, the dream was scattered into the sky. There was ecstasy in his eyes. Senior Gojo Satoru deserves to be the only existence that can be recognized by the boss. This power is simply terrible. His joy has not lasted for a second. His face quickly became gloomy. Because he saw it, Gojo Satoru didn't return to the ground like he thought. Instead, he still looked at the air with a warlike expression on his face. In Nanami Kento's incredible eyes, the countless scattered lights and shadows were slowly intertwined. At the same time, in the realm that no one can see, a pair of scarlet eyes are quietly watching everything. The power of this guy Yeming is still so tricky. Chapter 222 Advertisement. This is pure chaos. Everything here seems to have been violently stirred by a huge blender. Everything is broken, chaotic, and intertwined. A figure shrouded in a black robe stood at the very center of this space. He seems to be the only master of this space, and the only clearness in this chaos. Watching everything that happened before me, a bit of disgust appeared in his scarlet eyes, as if he had seen something disgusting. Da da da. In the endless chaos, a crisp footstep sounded slowly. In this space where everything is constantly distorted in chaos. The voice is so abrupt. After hearing the footsteps, the man did not pay any attention to it. Still watching for himself, Gojo Satoru and Yeming fight in the air. Yeming was planted this time, do you believe it? The cold voice sounded slowly. An illusory figure appeared beside the man in black. The image of the Taoist is a constant retreat in nothingness. No one can see it really. Yeming, this old guy has lived for 23 years. I don't know how many years it has been. Although this human cub has good strength, he definitely can't beat him. The owner of the scarlet eyes looked at Yi Meng, who was constantly gathering together in the sky, and said quietly. Gamble or not. You guy, the gambling is too bad, just like those guys who wanted to live forever. Obviously I won, you really run faster than anyone else. Ha ha ha. Who would have thought that a group of human heroes can't stand the temptation so much? I just went to talk to them casually, they actually went to Cursed Spirit. The illusory figure scratched his head in embarrassment, and his tone was very distressed. It seems that I cannot understand the general behavior of those human beings. Thousands of years ago, the heroes of mankind found the cursed spirit Yada of death in an old state, hoping to switch to a method of avoiding death as soon as the sacrifice. Therefore, a 1,000-year lie about Curse Island was unfolded. But, no one ever knew. Who told the lunatics that Yada could let them avoid death, and no one knew why Yada's whereabouts appeared in their heads out of thin air. If you think about it carefully, lie deceived those humans, Yada reduced them to slaves with so-called immortality. Advertisement. But the beginning of all this is the pair of invisible black hands. The owner of the scarlet eyes snapped a crisp finger. Slap, a huge sofa appeared in the space. The two sat down at the same time. Seeing everything reflected in the space as if watching a movie. You recycled the thing on Curse Island, the man in black suddenly asked. Of course, but if Zenin Ryuichi hadn't put his mind on the curse, I guess I wouldn't be able to take that thing. But well, tisk tisk, it's worthy of being the curse born in the Curse Island of the 1,000-year-old Jujutsu Master's curse and the endless resentment of those immortals. Although there is no present world, the curse power leaked out every day is already very tyrannical. However, because of the destruction of Curse Island, it is estimated that it will take a while to evolve. The emptiness figure said unhurriedly, it's fine in your hands. We need to accumulate the whole cards thicker before the old Tianyuan thing wakes up completely. A few faint rays of light flashed through the scarlet eyes. The chaos around is constantly twisting. Everything in the sky was reflected in his eyes. Gojo Satoru changed his former frivolousness at this moment. The white power on his body was constantly surging. That comes from the power between reality and imaginary, which is enough to annihilate everything. After the trip to Curse Island, Gojo Satoru began to study his true power. After his constant attempts, he found that simply releasing the power of nothingness. Although it is very powerful, it has a very fatal weakness. That is consumption. His power of nothingness is different from curse power, where it is still part of the unlimited spell. It is the power that Gojo Satoru accidentally drops during the control between infinity and finite. Not only is it very difficult to control, but more importantly, the amount of nothingness is very scarce. Even if Gojo is mixed with nihilistic attacks, he can only hit 10 times at most. However, looking at the light and shadow of Yeming, whose body is healing continuously, an inexplicable light appeared in Gojo Satoru's eyes. Gojo Satoru, your talent is good, you can actually guide the imaginary and reality out of nothingness. This is going far beyond the talent of that ancestor in your family. In the future, you, with the power of nothingness, will definitely become the core of the entire Jujutsu world, and will even be above Master Tianyuan, but now, you are not enough. Advertisement. Let go, let me take Zenin Ryuichi away, I can assume that nothing has happened. Otherwise, you can't guarantee whether your life will belong to you in the next battle. The threat in Yimeng's mouth was unconcealed, and his voice was cold and without any emotion. Hey, seniors, you people, why don't you always remember what I said? I said, he is my friend, Dream Lu. A huge impact erupted in an instant, and the tyrannical force began to quickly annihilate the space. Seems to want to drag everything in front of you into the endless, empty. However, this seems to destroy all power, but in the palm of Na Yimeng, it began to disappear continuously. Stubbornly stubborn. Yimeng's figure flickered rapidly in the air, surpassing layers of space, as if at that moment he was the original 500 in front of Gojo. Endless bright cohesion in the hands, buzzing. Like thousands of galaxies flowing slowly in the world. Get a good night's sleep. Yimeng, after all, cares about the momentum of the Gojo family and the potential of Gojo Satoru. Even if his strength is enough to crush Gojo Satoru and others to death. But once I did it myself, waiting for him will be the endless pursuit of those two guys. Because of a six-eyed holder who has mastered the power of nothingness. For the eradication of cursed spirit in the future, as long as it can grow up, it will be far more important than its own. Gojo Satoru felt the power of Yimeng in front of him, without a lower limit of art, and quickly activated. He found that his body seemed to be bound by something in this space. Even the ultimate thrust is launched. I can't make my body move even a bit. Boy, rest. Yimeng's fist was raised high, and his tyrannical force annihilated everything around him. Hey, although I don't know what happened, but what do you want to do to my friend? A cold voice suddenly sounded in Yimeng's ear. For some reason, Yimeng, who has survived for countless years, Yimeng, one of the three judges. There was a trace of trembling from the bottom of my heart, and the voice seemed to come from the babble of a demon in hell. Frivolity, random, but hidden indescribable endless malice. Chapter 223 Advertisement. Hey, although I don't know what happened, but what do you want to do to my friend? A cold voice suddenly sounded in Yimeng's ear. For some reason, Yimeng, who has survived for countless years, Yimeng, one of the three judges. There was a trace of trembling from the bottom of my heart, and the voice seemed to come from the babble of a demon in hell. Frivolity, random, but hidden indescribable endless malice. Base. His body, condensed by curse power, instantly fluctuated wildly, and the curse power continued to rotate on his body like a chainsaw. At the next moment, he had already put away the idea of defeating Gojo Satoru. The figure clearly retreated tens of meters away. His eyes fixed on the boy who suddenly appeared, in the chaotic space. The figure in black and the void stood up at the same time. The two looked at each other and saw a hint of shock in each other's eyes. Although he was not on the scene and couldn't personally feel that kind of power, just showing up could make Yimeng retreat again and again. Even if the two of them asked themselves, they couldn't do it. Will such a terrifying monster be born in this era? If this kind of guy was born in that era, the balance between humans and cursed spirit would have been broken by him. Just between the two talking, the huge light curtain that peeped at everything suddenly went dark. Everything in the chaos became a little deeper. What appeared on the light curtain was a pair of eyes with no emotion at all. A trace of blood in the moon-white pupils was quietly rising. Have you seen enough? Have you seen enough? Just get out of here? Rumble. Suddenly, there seemed to be countless thunders in the space. The light curtain was broken layer by layer, scattered into countless chaos. He directly attacked your domain, chaos. The void figure looked at everything in front of him incredibly. And the face of the man in black was solemn. Have you seen enough? Get out if you see enough. The boy chuckled into the void. Then, his eyes fell on Gojo Satoru, who was sorting out his clothes. Sorry to bother you. Advertisement. I can't tell you the trouble, but you should ask me to eat cake. Gojo Satoru shrugged his shoulders casually, and his tone returned to his usual frivolous tone. Of course, but now, leave it to me. Talking this boy is naturally Zenin Ryuichi, who woke up from that epiphany. He was in that endless river of time, and he constantly felt everything. He didn't know what happened to all the external affairs. Until just now I got up and stopped. Yimeng was about to hit Gojo Satoru after a blow. 6 Immortal Thief Treasury's physical tyrannical perception ability brought everything that happened to Ryuichi's body through physical memory. Curse the visitors from the palace, and the judgment comes. The 12th ordinance, everything began to recover in Ryuichi's mind. He looked at the only judge named Yimeng who remained. The corner of his mouth was slightly pursed, revealing his iconic demon smile. In the moon-white eyes, blood was spreading silently. The tyrannical intuition that he had nourished by 6 Immortal Thief Treasury told himself that the light and shadow in front of him had a deep malice against him. Although I don't know where this malice comes from. However, just relying on the fact that the opponent wants to impose a ban on him has violated Ryuichi's bottom line. Zenin Ryuichi, I am the judge of the mantra temple who has guarded the Jujutsu world for thousands of years. You have committed the first and third articles of the mantra, and your friend started the 12th mantra on your behalf. Are you willing to execute? Yimeng's voice was cold and without emotion, like a robot. Haha. Ryuichi let out a chuckle, not loud, but everyone in the entire account can hear clearly. What a majesty, what a pomp. The Jujutsu Association hired Curse to kill me, you don't care. And when I fight back, you are saying so, ha ha ha. Interesting, so interesting, I really didn't expect it. It turns out that there is a double standard dog in this world. Although Yeming didn't understand what Ryuichi's double standard dog meant. But he knows that it must not be a good thing to be an old man. A trace of evil thought in vain rose in his eyes. Huh. Rules are rules. This is the rule that Curse Palace has maintained for this world for thousands of years. No one can replace the iron rules set by the Curse Palace. His voice is decisive. A burst of azure blue light and shadow emerged under Ryuichi's feet. 9 palaces, 8 diagrams, Tai Chi, all emerge. Click. An inexplicable force was blocked from Ryuichi in the void. Advertisement seeing this scene of Yeming, his eyes shrank suddenly. My own Jujutsu was actually blocked, and there shouldn't be the slightest movement in this move. He reproduced the blind tone of the voice that he had just spoken countless times. Blind sounds cannot be received by the ears and can cause huge damage to the human body. Ryuichi felt the attack stopped by Feng Chi Men just now. A bit of disdain appeared in his eyes. Diaresis rules? Iron rules? Did you make a mistake? When did I belong to your Jujutsu world? You curse the temple, what right do you have to restrain me? I'm not the so-called Jujutsu teacher, I'm just an ordinary boss. But now, one of my employees was injured by you, and another intern might leave some inexplicable questions. You said, for giving me such a big trouble, how can I thank you? Jung. Before Ryuichi's voice fell, the odd rounds spread instantly under his feet. The azure blue light and shadow continued to shuttle. In the next moment, the entire sky was enveloped by that strange game. Nanami Kento looked at Ryuichi in the sky and suddenly took out a notepad in his hand. Pung. It seems to have broken away from the outside space. Domain, Lee's good. The game just started, son. Heart-wandering wind, this area under my feet. It's like writing something. Feeling the mysterious power of the odd door game, Yimeng's brow wrinkled slightly. Ryuichi's voice suddenly remembered in his ears. It's like the punch he once hit on Cher's stomach. An extremely tyrannical attack hit his stomach instantly. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. This punch, under this power, there seems to be a brand new world. He suddenly looked up and saw that Ryuichi, who was originally in front of him, slowly dissipated like an afterimage. Shi-er stood up from the ground and looked at Ryuichi, who hit Yimeng's stomach with a smile on his mouth. The beginning and the end of everything are in constant reincarnation. Chapter 224. Advertisement. A punch filled with the power of the dry word in the sky and shuttled in the space of the mind. Ryuichi appeared in front of Yimeng in an instant, and a terrifying blow struck him across, hitting Yimeng's stomach heavily. Click. Bang. That power penetrates everything. Falling on Yimeng's body, countless black thunders stunned the void. Yimeng's eyes violently opened, and the curse power of his entire body suddenly collapsed. There was a deep shock in his eyes. Impossible, he obviously shouldn't be hit by any attack. Why can this guy's attack be through my reissue? Click. Bang. Not waiting for him to continue thinking. The strange power on his body exploded again, and his body looked like a baseball that was blown out. Bang. 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 The old force stays, the new force regenerates. Under Ryuichi's punch, the gods who were still aloft just now were constantly rioting crazily among the clouds. Under the collapse of power, the curse-powered body was almost shattered. Senior, a body condensed with a curse force, wanting to take me away, you look down on me too much. Looking at Yeming rolling in embarrassment in the air. There was no mercy in Ryuichi's eyes, ever met in this scene. Yeming, who was constantly tumbling in the air, was exactly the same as Cher, who was punched to the ground by him at that time. The curse power in Yimeng's body continued to condense, and his body slowly stopped in the air as the golden light surged. In his heart, a pitch-black fist mark was deeply imprinted on his body gathered by curse power. With the surging of the bright curse power, it was actually impossible to repair the fist mark. Click. ZZZ. The fist mark seemed to carry some unknown power, constantly tearing the curse power on his body. How could you break my jujutsu? Yimeng's tone was deeply incredible. Ryuichi looked at Yeming, who was in the air, covering his chest. There was a slight chuckle at the corner of his mouth. Your jujutsu can reproduce everything. Re-engraving airflow, re-engraving power. But space and time have no meaning in front of me. Ryuichi's tone is like a demon god of hell, high above him, watching all beings in front of him. Yimeng, the judge, who had survived for an unknown period of time, seemed to be reduced to an ignorant human being. His pair of moon-white eyes, it's like seeing through everything about him. Under Feng Chi Men, Yimeng's jujutsu has been thoroughly seen by him. Advertisement. The jujutsu of Yeming is the power that can reproduce everything. Re-engraving is not the same as copying. Copying is simply a reflection of something. The re-engraving is to completely repeat the object and repair its weaknesses. And the power to be re-engraved can be infinitely reenacted with each other. This kind of jujutsu itself is not terrible, but it fell into the hands of Yeming, who was born with twin pupils. It will become very tyrannical. Double pupils can clearly see the truth. All the power that can be seen by Yeming can be reproduced by him. This is only possible with double pupils. Therefore, the infinity and nothingness of Gojo Satoru cannot harm Yeming. Because although Yeming has no way to perfectly control infinity and nothingness, but the exact same substance can be reproduced. Condense everything in the void. The same force will of course be annihilated under the collision. And around Yeming, countless air was re-engraved by him for an unknown number of times. Even Gojo Satoru's sea may not be able to annihilate the layer of air. But that power couldn't stop Ryuichi's punch. Yeming could feel that the wall of air in front of him had passed. Suddenly, Ryuichi's fist went beyond space, hit him directly. Zenin Ryuichi, you are really strong, but do you think this is enough? Rumble. Yeming looked at Ryuichi's playful eyes, and the endless anger in his heart kept surging. Even if this curse body is broken, Ryuichi must be completely wiped out here. Even if it violated the curse, he didn't believe that the old folks in Zenin's family would really be enemies for a dead person. The deep and solemn killing intent surging in his eyes like a tide. Rumble. His hands seemed to hug the sky again. The endless golden curse power burned crazily on his body, and his breath became stronger and stronger. There is no hesitation, no hesitation. This guy who has survived for thousands of years made the best judgment. He wants to burn this curse body to completely kill Ryuichi. Even if his jujutsu is cracked, it still has no solution as long as it is supported by the curse that can annihilate everything. This kid's attack can cut off the space, so let him have no chance to shoot. Base. With a certain mind, Yeming slammed to Ryuichi. After re-engraving the speed countless times, he appeared in front of Ryuichi almost instantly. Click. The left hand swept down and hit Ryuichi directly. Wow. Advertisement, but Ryuichi's body hit by him made a ripple. Scattered into a burst of ender. Call again when you see it. Next moment, Ryuichi appeared behind him. Humph. Yeming snorted coldly. Stay still. But behind him, countless shadows of fists were born out of thin air. When the sky is falling, as if countless meteors shake the sky. Under the dense shadow of fists, Ryuichi's body was like a butterfly in it. Fly up and down. That countless terrorist attacks. He couldn't even touch the corners of his clothes. Click. ZZ. The golden power keeps burning. In Yeming's fist, countless black thunder surge. Facing all the horror, a hint of impatience appeared in Ryuichi's eyes. His toes touched the ground again. The odd door turned slowly. He pinches with one hand. A breath of incomparable mystery emerged on his body. The 9 palaces determine good and bad, and gossip determines the universe. And in this strange game, good or bad position, everything is based on Ryuichi's will as the highest. Cosmic lag base. A burst of translucent power began to spread around Ryuichi continuously. That power surged through the sky full of fist shadows. It's like pressing everything to pause. Yeming's heart suddenly rose up a little bit of badness. Domains. The odd door game itself creates an area for its own use. From a certain perspective, it can also be classified into domains. A realm appears out of thin air. There is no need to expand the space of the realm. In this field, no one has ever done it except the legendary Ryōmen Sukuna. This is a kind of horror talent that can create a picture scroll out of thin air without a canvas. Can you change the time? There was a rare panic in Yeming's eyes. Chapter 225. Advertisement. Covering the changes in Zhou Tian, turning me into a king. Feng Hu Chi Men may not be the most powerful existence in 8 mysterious arts, but it is definitely the most difficult existence to grasp. The 9 palaces determine good and bad, gossip to see fortune. In the eyes of Feng Hu Chi Men, everything in this world is so shallow, thin and boring. True and false, false and true. Is this kind of falsehood that exists when human beings exist. It is meaningless in front of Feng Hu Chi Men. Because everything is defined. Then in the strange door, all the definitions are in the heart of the master of the strange door. After experiencing that epiphany about time, Ryuichi's mastery of Feng Hu Chi Men has reached a certain level. The progress even jumped up, directly reaching the level of 60%. The causes and effects that he could not understand in the past have now become extremely clear. Yeming's jujutsu reproduces all forces in this world. And Ryuichi's Feng Hu Chi Men can become a world in the strange door. So Ryuichi's attack can span the air that has been engraved innumerably. A punch directly applied to Yeming's body. And at the moment, the odd door game was under Ryuichi's sign. It's all started. Time is within the odd door, completely losing its meaning. The power that even time can directly control, put everything on hold. Even the consciousness with Yeming gradually sank into rigidity. Not a realm, but better than a realm. The guy who hides his head and shows his tail is simply too boring. Ryuichi looked at Yeming, who was trapped in the stagnant time and space in front of him. There was a trace of contempt at the corner of his mouth. He could feel that Yeming at this moment was just the consciousness hidden behind this cursed body. That's why he can stop his time so lightly. Damn, a realm that can master time. This kind of power, unless my body comes, otherwise, there is no way to judge this guy. Yemeng's consciousness is stuck in that eternal moment. But what is strange is that his thoughts can continue to rotate in some indescribable nothingness. Regarding the ruling Zenin Ryuichi, he has completely lost hope. I thought this mantra body was enough to deal with Ryuichi. But what I didn't expect was, in front of Ryuichi, who holds Feng Hu Chi Men, incomplete jujutsu is almost equivalent to a wasteful existence. Yemeng's curse is very strong. Powerful enough to hit Facier with a physical punch, it can defeat Gojo Satoru's infinite, and it can also wipe out all of Sha Yuji's cursed spirit. But the moment when facing Ryuichi, who was like a god. Except for being imprisoned in time, he already can't do anything. Next time I meet, I will get rid of you too. Advertisement. Ryuichi stuck to Naoming's ear. There was a bit of inexplicable willfulness in the tone. It's like a kid who must get a certain toy. His palm lifted up. Hold it slightly in the void. Click. Buzzing. The imprisoned time and space shivered violently. Cracks continued to evolve in that space. Yi Meng's body continued to collapse under the crack. The dazzling curse power of the whole body began to dim. His body shrank quickly. It's like an air balloon. There is no sanity in his eyes. Because, during this time of collapse, Yeming retained the consciousness in this flesh. Has been completely annihilated. Click. The blue light swept everything. Like a huge wave washing everything, beautiful and deadly. Click. Ryuichi looked at the completely shattered Yeming, and his body kept falling on the ground. You guy, you have become stronger again. There was a sense of war in Gojo Satoru's heart. This kind of fighting spirit arises solely because of Zenin Ryuichi. Within just a few days of playing, he could feel that Zenin Ryuichi's strength had at least increased by a large margin. That Yeming mantra that made me feel tricky. In front of him, he was as weak as a child. Vaguely, Gojo Satoru only thinks of the man who was only half a step in front of him. It seems to have taken a big step forward again. And this step is the difference between heaven and earth. What's wrong, Gojo? Don't you think you can't keep up with me? If you even concede defeat, the world would be a bit too boring. Ryuichi stared at Gojo Satoru's pair of heavenly eyes. The tone is deeply lonely. At this moment, Gojo seemed to see himself. Walking alone on the endless mountain tops. Seeking flowers. No matter how sentient beings chase after him, he can't be seen. Advertisement. He looked back, and there was no one behind him. Hee. Gojo Satoru smiled, and the slight confusion in his eyes quickly dissipated. It was replaced by a deep confidence. What nonsense is you talking about? You'd better go faster, faster. Otherwise, you will find that my back will always be your way forward. Of course he is qualified to say this. He is Gojo Satoru, he is the strongest. Everything in this world should be left behind by him, and it should be so. At this moment, some doubts about myself once were quietly turned into ashes. Sha Yuji on the side looked at Gojo Satoru, who was so radiant. 0. There are so many flavors in my heart. He also wanted to be like Gojo, swearing his future recklessly. But facing Ryuichi, who can completely suppress himself. Do not know why. In front of his eyes, Gojo Satoru's figure became more and more blurred. Gojo, I really tried my best, I can't catch up. His heart felt bitter. Zenin Ryuichi obviously doesn't care about his thoughts. He walked slowly to Shire's side. He is not willing to say it easily. There was a smile at the corner of his mouth. With the determination to die, he protects Ryuichi, who has fallen into a state of epiphany. Earth. Of course, under absolute rational analysis, he reached a conclusion. A fist clasped his chest. When everyone is close to fighting at full force. Talking about brothers, friendship, this kind of thing is too vague for Share, who has been living in loneliness and betrayal. Hearing this, Shier also leaked a little smile. You guy really worked hard enough to increase your salary. Nanami Kento looked at Ryuichi. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Senior, I'm sorry, I'm too weak, I can't help with any help. A 90-degree bend came suddenly. This bad-spoken man, even if it is because he wants to protect his friends. In any case, he did not have the strength to change the battle at all. So he chose to guard Ryuichi's body. Nanami Kento judged his own strength. Chapter 226. Advertisement. Looking at Nanami, who blames himself very much, Ryuichi said nothing. Because for this man, any words are a humiliation to his faith. He patted Nanami's shoulder a few times. Smiled and shook his head. Subsequently, then the warm smile at the corner of his mouth disappeared quickly. It was replaced by a demon-like abuse. After watching for so long, I should have watched enough. Ryuichi's voice is very soft. But it clearly appeared in everyone's mind. After a long time, there was a clear footstep in the darkness. It was the sound of high heels hitting the ground. Gojo Satoru doesn't seem to have the slightest interest in the visitors. He snapped his fingers casually. The tent that enveloped the entire Jujutsu Association building began to slowly dissipate and fade away. Next time you meet, be careful not to be left behind by me. Gojo Satoru grabbed the injured Sha Yuji, and his body began to rise continuously into the air. Infinite power is constantly surging around his body. Base. Then, before Ryuichi spoke, it turned into a light and shadow. As the heir to the Gojo family, although Gojo Satoru has no interest in politics or the like, he knows it well with his wisdom after being touched by his ears and eyes. So he clearly knows what will happen next. Even if the Jujutsu Association is unbearable, it will not be reduced to being defeated by Zenin Shire and the fledgling Nanami Kento. The battle itself smelled of conspiracy. Even if the relationship between him and Ryuichi is good, it is his respect for his friends to avoid him when he should. Da. In the darkness, a woman in uniform walked out slowly. She wore a pair of red glasses, and her fiery figure could instantly draw all men's eyes. The towering chest is almost gushing out. A frown and a smile are even more sultry. Meeting for the first time. Hello, Mr. Ryuichi, I am the new acting president of the Jujutsu Association after acting as the #1 agent. According to the regulations, you can call me #1. The woman in front of her who claimed to be #1 inherited the identity of #1. Became the president of Jujutsu Association. Advertisement. And Ryuichi looked at the woman in front of him who deliberately lowered the collar of her chest. The corners of his mouth were a bit disdainful. That gentle town that can make countless men dream. In Ryuichi's eyes, it was inexplicably more dirty. Feng Chi men has not converged yet. All the unimportant past that enters the Kimen will be revealed in front of Ryuichi's eyes. And this woman standing in front of Ryuichi. In the words of the past life. That is, a pair of vermilion lips is tasted by thousands of people, and a pair of jade arms is 10,000 people. For such a woman, Ryuichi looks dirty at first glance. His eyes narrowed slightly, the corners of his mouth twitched, and he said, I am not interested in knowing what kind of activities your Jujutsu Association has. After that old guy died, I didn't have the slightest interest in your association, but I still want to remind you. You better not let me move in trouble. If not. Ryuichi's voice paused slightly, and a touch of scarlet rose quietly in his eyes, as if a blood moon hung above the sky. I think there will be many people in the association who are interested in your position. After all, he never looked at the woman again. There was a surge of curse power on his body, and the odd door game gradually converged. Base. His figure was like a bubble, and it began to fade away. Only the pair of scarlet moons was firmly imprinted in the eyes of women. Soon after Ryuichi left, the woman stood in place in a daze. It seemed that his mind was lost in Ryuichi's eyes. Ahem. A soft cough suddenly awakened her from that loss. She shook her head and recovered from the endless loss. Looking at the blonde boy in front of him, he was a little curious. Little brother, are you interested in joining the Jujutsu Association? With your talent, you can quickly become famous in the Jujutsu Association. The #1 of the new generation, although I don't know who this young man is. But her Jujutsu is very special. She can see a person potential. The average Jujutsu teacher seemed to her to be a handful of flames, and the one with stronger potential might be a light. However, the young man in front of him is a raging fire that can burn all things. Such a talent, even she, who has read countless people, has rarely seen her. Advertisement. As for Ryuichi and Gojo, she didn't even dare to turn on Jujutsu to take a peek. Because she just felt the breath of those two people, she felt the radiance of the sun facing her whole body. If you turn on Jujutsu, maybe your eyes will be blinded. When Nanami heard the woman's words, his face was still as old-fashioned as before. Thank you for your appreciation. But I'm sorry, my name is Nanami Kento, and I am an intern at All Things House. Next, I want to talk to you, your association, compensation for our house of everything. Nanami's voice was loud, and in his words, there was no opportunity for the woman to refuse. There are some things that the boss doesn't care about. But as an intern in the house of everything, an employee of the boss, he couldn't care less about these trivial things. The woman looked at Nanami, who suddenly took out a notebook and kept writing things out of it. Inexplicably feel. It seems that to some extent, this serious boy is far more difficult than Ryuichi. In the night sky, countless stars are hanging high in the sky. The bright full moon shines on everything. Under the moonlight, the surrounding lights and shadows look particularly gentle. Wow, it is also the only forbidden place that prohibits any tourists from visiting. There was a deep resentment in the pair of golden eyes. Click. The power was terrifying, but it was like some kind of sophisticated machine. This is the only virgin forest in Fuzang. The spiteful voice was remembered in the deep forest, and the source of that voice was on an ancient tree. Everything in the forest began to scream overwhelmed. That ancient tree looks no different from other ancient trees from a distance, but if you look carefully. But the next moment, Zenin Ryuichi. Under the tree, there was an extremely thin person bound by countless vines in Gumu's torso. The ancient trees here are towering, and the vines here are like giant pythons. We'll find out. A burst of invisible power burst out instantly. Under the moonlight, everything is indescribably beautiful. The wanton tearing through time and space did not cause the slightest harm to any plants. Chapter 227. Advertisement. Countless intertwined vines pierced deeply into this figure's body. He and Gu Mu seemed to be holding something together by this vine. An inexplicable force wanders slowly between the two. That power is vigorous from time to time, and from death to death. As if the world's greatest malice. Constantly echoing. Yi Meng's eyes were overwhelmed by deep hatred. Above his skinny body, there was no curse power floating. Just like an ordinary person. But, most people need to see his pair of golden eyes to know how terrifying the person in front of them is. Zenin Ryuichi. Good. Very good. How many years have it? For so many years no one has dared to provoke my majesty. Yeming has forgotten how many years he has survived in this world, but he still remembers that in the most brilliant era of Jujutsu, he was also standing on the top of the era. And now, he was actually smashed by a hairy boy. 23. How does this make him not hate, how not to be angry? He clenched his teeth, and a strange blackness suddenly appeared all over his body. The black color is constantly flowing out of his pores like liquid. Stabbed. A drop of black dropped to the ground, corroding a small hole in the ground. And the next moment, take that hole as the center. The black is like ink falling in the water, quickly rendering everything around it. The ground did not corrode as it was at first, but was covered and shrouded in endless black. Click. There was a very crisp sound from the vines on Yeming. Countless black cracks wandered among the vines. Calm down, Yeming. Now if you release the shackles, everything that Master Tianyuan has done will fall short. A magnificent and bright voice slowly sounded. Then the light descended. Advertisement. It's like swallowing all the power of darkness. A light and shadow fell. Above the ground, those sly blacks were like mice that saw a cat, curled up in a corner quickly. The ground once again returned to its former appearance. The one who came was on that day, Kaluo, who smoothed the sky with one hand. His form at the moment is like a curse body. The whole body is covered by cursive power, and the pure white light power flows on his body. Just like a Buddha made, anyone who saw him couldn't help but feel calm. All the troubles in the world will dissipate under this light. Gallo. Such a shameful shame. If you can't get it. I can't sleep well. Yi Meng's voice seemed to be squeezed out of his throat, and his hair was horrified. Looking at Yeming in anger. Jalo sat on the ground cross-legged, hands clasped together, and shook his head helplessly. Yeming, your hostility is getting heavier and heavier. Tethering your body to this ancient wood is to get rid of the endless violence in your heart. Thousands of years have passed, and your hostility has not diminished in the slightest. This is not a good thing for us. Humph. Yi Meng let out a cold snort. Among the golden eyes, the sky of anger seemed to swallow everything in that world. Ga Luo, you don't use it to persuade me. Although I was a bit irrational just now, I won't violate the agreement back then. Before everything starts, I won't break the shackles. I can promise. Yemeng's words were loud and sound, which also made Jia Luo a little relieved. Although this old man of my own, for some reasons, often cannot control his hostility. But his eloquent character, even after 1,000 years of separation, still hasn't changed in any way. The curse that anger left on you back then is too serious. Otherwise, you won't be reduced to this level. Jia Luo couldn't bear to look at Yi Meng. Although none of the three of them were able to walk out of the bondage arbitrarily. But in the temple of the Buddha, chanting Buddhist scriptures and seeking great freedom, I still don't feel suffering. And Mu Kai was sleeping in the endless darkness. His character was originally lazy, and it was more in line with his mood. But Yeming did have to be imprisoned by Shenteng because of the cursed spirit. Controlled in the ancient trees of Tongtian. Advertisement. Trying to rely on the tranquility of the ancient trees that have existed for thousands of years to suppress the violence. But now it seems that even in the past 1,000 years, it is impossible to completely eliminate that disaster. It doesn't matter. No matter what the price is, as long as human beings are still in this world in the end, laughing, my sacrifice is worthwhile. But, Gallo, I have a request. When everything starts again, I want a new body. This body can no longer bear the power of my revival. No problem. Gallo Shi happily agreed to Yeming. As the Jujutsu teacher who paid the heaviest price for mankind in the Millennium Bloody Battle, Yeming is qualified to get the compensation he wants. Ha 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 ha. Very good. Hearing this, Yi Meng let out a burst of laughter. The smile declared that it sounded very good, but it had a somewhat inexplicable meaning. I want Zenin Ryuichi's body. Is that okay? You fart. Just as Yemeng's voice fell, without waiting for Gallo to speak, a voice appeared out of nowhere and it was a beating. Talent. Haha. Don't be naive. Mu Kai, what era do you think it is now? Those guys are already ready to move. In at most 20 years, everything will come back. You actually want his body, it's like a dream. He and Gojo Satoru, who has mastered nothingness, are the purity that this era should have. At this moment, Mo Kai changed his appearance that day and old, his words were extremely sharp, and he made no secret of Yi Meng's scolding. It is also a body transformed from pure curse power like Gallo. The generation of talents such as gods is even more uninterrupted. I only saw countless dark surgings in the forest, converging into a small figure. No matter how talented you are, only by entrusting your body to the right person can human beings have the qualifications to survive before the coming Great Purge. But, thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. It's like an evil spirit coming out of hell. Zenin Ryuichi's talent is much stronger than the old ones of us. There are indeed only these three who still stand at the apex of the Jujutsu world. Striding over to Ga Luo and sitting down. This person is the last of the three judges, Mo Kai. His whole body is covered by the power of pure darkness. For thousands of years, there have been many amazing talents. Chapter 228. Advertisement. Haha, Yeming, I don't want to quarrel with you, and I don't want to argue with you. I only tell you a word. 20 years later, even if you break free of Zenin Ryuichi's strength, you will not be able to see the whole picture. Believe it or not, after speaking, he took a serious look at his side, Ja Luo surrounded by light and Buddha's light. The figure began to collapse, and the darkness quietly passed away in a trance. Only a soft sigh fell in Ja Luo's ear. Zenin Ryuichi, it took 2 days to cut it out. Base. A glimmer of light suddenly appeared in Ja Luo's eyes. It seemed to have heard some exciting news. The existence of a sword in 2 days is the greatest malice of mankind towards the gods and the cursed spirit. It was a sword made by the will of Miyamoto Musashi, the strongest swordsman of mankind. The aspect of that knife is the curse of Quan Kei cursed spirit. Every attack hits directly on the curse root of cursed spirit. Every knife has a chance to completely wipe out curse. It is one of the most powerful cursed tool. But it is extremely difficult to get out of the sheath with one knife in 2 days. Only the Jujutsu master whose will can be recognized by Miyamoto Musashi can pull it out. As the existence of the same era, Kiera once fought side by side with Miyamoto. So he knew exactly what kind of pride the cursed spirit that had no curse power, but relied on an ordinary long knife to kill all the cursed spirits. Ha ha ha, you ask me what kind of person in this world can match me. Oh, that's too much. Inuzuka's calligraphy and painting, Yamato's tea ceremony, these are far from catching up. You are talking about kendo, haha. That's true, no one else. Ja Luo still remembers that at that time, he asked Miyamoto what kind of person could rival him, and that deep loneliness in Miyamoto's eyes. There was no existence that could carry Miyamoto's will in that era. Until Miyamoto's incarnation took one cut in 2 days. He also tried to draw a knife. But it was rejected by Miyamoto's will. Only the existence that can be truly recognized by the strongest can draw the knife. Ryuichi, who is now able to use the 2-day sword at will, seems to him to be no less effective than Gallo. Physical matters are still to be discussed. Yeming, who heard this, said nothing. There was only a hint of sarcasm at the corner of his mouth, although the anger in his eyes was suppressed. Advertisement. But it's more like being hidden under a volcano that will erupt at any time. Hee. Okay, then you can think about it. I'm tired. While speaking, Yi Meng didn't look at Ja Luo again, but slowly closed his eyes, as if falling into a deep sleep. Gallo seemed to want to say something. His mouth opened slightly. But seeing Yemeng's behavior, he had no choice but to shook his head. There was something indescribable in his eyes. The light scattered all over the body and disappeared in the forest. After a long time, Yi Meng slowly opened his eyes. Looking at the ground that the two of them had done just now, resentment deep into their bones broke out in their eyes. Pung, pung. 2 extremely terrifying curses hit the ground instantly. He seemed to treat the ground as the two people, and vented his anger on the ground frantically. Wolf-hearted guy, if it weren't for me, none of you would survive. Very good, you forced me. Yemeng's voice gradually calmed down from the initial craziness while speaking. In the end it became as deep as the Dead Sea. He looked in the direction of Tokyo, as if he was looking at some prey. Suicide in the canyon. In front of the cabin where Yada once lived. A young monk dressed in white walked slowly to the wooden table. Looking at the teacup on the table, he smiled a little. With the smile on his face, it seemed that even this terrifying and treacherous space had become a bit brighter. On the monk's neck, a pale Buddhist bead hung. The beads looked very sad, as if they had gone through countless years. He sat at the wooden table. Pick up the teacup. Wow. The teacup in his hand made a few noises, and a cup of tea was slowly flowing out in the void. Lie, there is still no progress in your tea art. The monk looked at the empty stool opposite him, as if he had seen a lie in black, with a look of reminiscence in his tone. Yada, I've talked a lot better. It's better to block, and to block is worse than sparse. A person who resists his own ability, in the end, waiting for you, only return to the ruins. Advertisement. But fortunately, I can feel that your rules still exist intact. It should be controlled by Zenin Ryuichi just like getting married. The monk put his hands together and said to himself. Between talking, the voice carries unspeakable rules. Everything around him began to feel a bit of confusion. Diaresis, don't worry. You were always so anxious to get everything done. Hundreds of years later, it may not be me who is standing in place and laughing. The monk looked at the void, as if he was interrupting all these countless hours, and was talking to some old person in the past. Vaguely, a space that looked like a mirror came out before his eyes. Although unable to see the full picture of the other party. But behind the figure was a huge red jug with a big, hideous mouth on top of the jug. He seemed to be talking about something. But the sound cannot be heard. You imagine that cursed spirit is just like this, stubborn and self-proclaimed as a god, but what's the use? In front of that one, you only have to bow your heads and call your courtiers. The monk seemed to be bored with the existence in the mirror. With a casual wave, everything is erased. Lead is returned to nothingness. He drank clean tea from the past. Then there was a bit of reminiscence. Wow, a black breath instantly appeared from under his feet. It seems to be guided by some kind of force. His body gradually disappeared in the black mist. Next moment, appeared in the boundless darkness in the deepest part of the canyon. Above countless desolate bones, he stood beside the huge coffin. The expression of compassion on his face, like a bodhisattva, gradually faded. He put his hand on the coffin without expression. There was a bit of unclear light in his eyes. Brother, I walked out of the old monk's bet. Humans do have some very interesting existences. You are right, the world is big and small. The endless river summarizes everything, but I still can't find your shadow in it. Chapter 229. Advertisement. In the monk's voice, there seemed to be countless self in time and space repeating his words. Although the sound was not loud, it had an inexplicable power that was indescribable. The pair of blue eyes seemed to be able to see through the end of time and space. The black coffin stood quietly in place, like an immutable seal. In the past, modern, and future. It exists deeply in any node of time. The change of time is the most mysterious thing in this world. Any slight changes may lead to earth-shaking changes in the future. Just like a butterfly on the other side of the ocean gently waving its wings, a storm will be born on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean. In the eyes of the monk, there are endless future and past. But no matter what happens in that world, no matter how unbearable the past is, the black coffin still stood forever. In other words, even if it divides countless time and space, travels through thousands of years, the elder brother whom he respected so much still couldn't escape the destiny that fell asleep. Almost, brother, this era is not bad, with a carrier that can carry your existence. Among the new humans, there is an interesting guy. He not only drew a knife for 2 days, but more importantly. The monk's voice paused slightly, his eyes condensed, and the corners of his mouth curled up. Like a sly fox. More importantly, he, like you, is someone I can't see in the long river of time. You will be very interested in him, you will definitely. His voice became deeper and deeper, and there was a bit of deep nostalgia hidden in his tone. In this mist that was a little more hazy than darkness. The monk sat cross-legged next to the coffin, with bursts of fluorescence surging, and the years continued to swim, like a bodhisattva descending from the western sky to the world. Exudes a peaceful atmosphere. And beside him, on the coffin, there seemed to be an evil ghost transformed into a black mist, snarling, roaring, glaring at everything. His look. Don't speak, don't speak, don't see, don't spread in words, don't flow in history books. That is the deepest fear of mankind. It's also the only one in the world. Open black lens bracket curse close black lens bracket. ... Boom. Advertisement. Boom. 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 The strong and powerful heartbeat echoed in a room like a drum. From the outside, it looks like a huge church. A silver cross hung high on the roof of the church, and clusters of golden flowers spread all over the ground. The pure white foam was floating in midair. Everything looks so beautiful. And right in the center of this beautiful place, a huge embryo with a height of more than 10 meters is floating quietly. On the cursed fetus, there are countless black runes, like chains that are constantly imprisoned around the cursed fetus. That power is curious and gloomy. Although it seems to be somewhat the same as the mantra power, if you look closely, you will find that it is a completely new power that is completely different from the mantra power. Boom. Boom. A deafening heartbeat came from the cursed baby. If Ryuichi were here, he would definitely recognize it at a glance. This cursed fetus was the one that was conceived in the depths of the island at that time. It was also the one that disappeared out of thin air later. The cursed fetus is an embryo-like protection method that will only be born before the special grade is conceived. And this cursed baby is different from any cursed baby previously recognized in the eyes of Jujutsu Master. Because his derivation time is simply too long. He was born on the island of curse and bred in the curse of countless Jujutsu Masters and Immortals. Although the number of each batch is small, the pure curse of Jujutsu Masters far surpasses normal humans, and the endless life of Immortals. Embrace of pain. Their power is superimposed together, which is far more powerful than a single curse. But even under such tyrannical curse accumulation, it is indeed still not conceived from the cursed fetus. The faster the cursed fetus evolves, the stronger the cursed fetus is. This is one of the common sense in jujutsu circles. However, this cursed fetus was conceived for thousands of years. Although it was for incubation, the curse power emitted from time to time would make people extremely jealous. This kind of rare thing, except for the group of cursed spirits, no matter what, it really can't be made out. A voice slowly sounded above the huge cursed tire. The speaker was a man wearing a black priest's costume, and his eyes seemed to have two chaotic vortices. While turning slowly, with a certain breathtaking power. Advertisement. His appearance is generally the kind of public face that can't be recognized by the crowd. But it has a mysterious charm. Anyone who sees him will involuntarily put a trace of trust in him. He was sitting on top of the cursed baby, this huge monster feared by humans, under his A*, quietly like a pet. Even the heartbeat that made people feel deafening slowed down a bit. Little guy, don't worry, the outside world is not as beautiful as you think. He stroked the disgusting skin of the cursed fetus. Speak softly, as if comforting his own child. Boom. Dong dong. 2 consecutive heartbeats seemed to curse the baby in response to what the priest said. You have been waiting for 1,000 years. What does it matter if you are waiting for a while? A dozen believers have come outside now, wanting your favor. One hand clasped his chest, and then he knelt down. Master leader, in the eyes of humans, you are a monster that devours everything, and in the eyes of your kind, you will also be an outlier. What came in was a man with a respectful face wearing religious costumes. The believer's voice seemed to be suppressing a certain kind of fanatical belief. It was a kind of madness that only appeared on fanatics, a kind of madness that could climb up everything for the sake of faith. He looked at the priest aloft. Crunch. The guy who gave birth to you has died under his ambition. Quiet like a stone sculpture. I just wanted to open my mouth and continue to say something. Under his voice, the embryo, which was still a little vibrating, seemed to be asleep, silently. There was a frantic expression on his face, as if he had seen his own king. The door that was tightly closed was pushed abruptly open. A slight smile appeared on the priest's face. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Get out of that decayed body and become an immortal spirit. Sudden. Chapter 230. Advertisement. Get up. Hearing what the believer said, the corners of the priest's mouth turned upward, as if he had heard something funny. In that black hole-like pupil, a contempt flashed extremely quickly. His palm lifted slightly. A power other than the curse power appeared on the believer. Along with the ups and downs of his palm, the believer was gently lifted up by the force. At the same time, the muscles of the believer's whole body seemed to have gained some kind of promotion in an instant. Click. It swells quickly at a speed visible to the naked eye. Even the aura on his body has become even more tyrannical. The whole person has changed from being thin and weak to a strong man with muscular muscles all over. However, in the face of such a weird scene, he did not feel any surprise in the slightest. Instead, he bowed respectfully to the priest as if he was accustomed to it. My lord, those stupid humans are waiting for your will. The priest leaned his body half against a blood vessel on the cursed fetus. He let out a lazy breath. His eyes narrowed slightly. Looking outside the door of the church, it seemed to see a dozen wealthy businessmen who were like fat pigs, wiping the sweat from their foreheads with a handkerchief. While facing the believers around him, he showed a hypocritical smile. These guys who are not as good as monkeys are really annoying. However, monkeys also have the value of monkeys, don't they? He seemed to be in himself, and he seemed to be asking about an existence in this space that didn't exist. Snapped. In the eyes of believers, his great lord snapped his fingers at random. Only see. From the huge cursed fetus, several faint wounds appeared. Along the wound, a dozen small translucent cups appeared out of thin air. The black cursed blood slowly flowed out of the wound and gradually poured into the cup. The dark blood, with a stench a bit like rotten flesh and blood. Advertisement. The cups are arranged in a row, floating neatly towards the believer, floating quietly in front of the believer. As if waiting for some order. The rest, you can take care of it. Anyway, don't let them disturb me. The priest waved his hand at the believer at will. The believer is like a blessed soul, kneeling down again, knocking his head on the ground respectfully, and then slowly retreating toward the door. The row of cups filled with cursed blood quietly followed behind him. The door closed slowly. The light from outside the door hit the priest's face. It seems to be a guide from the kingdom of God. There was a cruel smile at the corner of his mouth. Muttered softly, humans who are born incapable of cursive power live on the power of cursed spirit. What's wrong? In the eyes of the aloof jujutsu masters, what is the difference between us and tiny bugs? Humans will always die. Aging, diseases, accidents, countless deaths are waiting for humans. If this is the case, then I am not a human being. Crunch. As his voice fell, the door was completely closed, and the last glimmer of light disappeared on his face. An extra human arm appeared on his hand at some point. Ha. Ha 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 ha. The deep darkness swallowed everything, only the frightening chewing sound echoed in the deepest part of the church. Brother, Do you think this state religion is reliable in the end? A rich businessman with a big belly whispered to the guy next to him who looked like a rich guy. Of course it's reliable, brother, since you are here, why do you still ask such things? Let me tell you, I saw it with my own eyes. The uncle of my family is already over 80 years old. At the time I had a heart attack and thought it would be okay, but after being sent here by his youngest son, his hair is now black and he is very energetic, looking like a person in his 40s. This state church of God is very popular right now. You can't get in without electricity, brother, since you can appear here, don't ask such jokes. The man pushed his top hat with a mysterious look. Carefully looked at the other people around him, and continued to speak in the fat man's ear. And brother, you also know the rules here. Hearing this, the fat man's bean-sized eyes shrank suddenly. Advertisement. As if thinking of something. Of course you know, but what do you think they are going to do with that thing? You care about him so many, the business can do the same as you and me, whoever has a clean hand is now, it is impossible for you to regret it. The man glanced at the fat man with a contemptuous look. There are few good things that can enter this church now. A few more have clean hands. Those who make big things don't stick to the trivial. What is unacceptable for paying a small price for yourself? The fat man scratched his head in a jealous manner, feeling a bit embarrassed. Still waiting for him to say something. Jiro Sugimoto. I am here. The believer in white at the forefront shouted a name, and the man with the top hat mocking the fat man had a trace of ecstasy on his face. ... 0. He held his arms high and almost jumped off the ground in excitement. The other sandbags were opened one after another. They were thrown by the believer's side one after another. Looking at the dozen or so cups of black blood floating in the air. Very well, you are the most pious existence among these people, so this first cup of gift from the Lord is for you to drink. Behind him were a dozen people who looked like bodyguards, one carrying a sandbag on his shoulder. This is it, the holy water that claims to be immortal with just one cup. But before the believer could finish speaking, the guy who was dazzled by greed swallowed the cup of holy water floating in front of him. Earth. Understood. Understood. Sugimoto nodded excitedly, waving a big hand. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Under the envious eyes of everyone, he was the first to come to believers. Remember, if your mind is shared with God, then you will have endless power, otherwise, you will. You should know the Lord's rules. There are also children of different genders, the only thing in common is that they are not more than 10 years old. A bit of greed appeared in his eyes. The man licked his dry lips greedily, and looked a little anxious when he looked at the messenger who nodded in satisfaction. After the sandbag was untied, a childish little face appeared, looking like a child less than 10 years old. Are you okay, my Lord God Envoy? Chapter 231. Advertisement. Gululu. He greedily swallowed the black blood into his mouth. I completely ignored the disgusting smell. I don't know why, this Sugimoto, who is extremely asleep and ruthless in the sea of commerce, is called the evil dragon. At the moment when facing this cup of black blood, his reason, his calmness, all dissipated. It was replaced by the greedy voice in his head. I want to drink. I want to drink. Desire swallowed everything and drowned everything in him. The black blood slipped from the corner of his mouth. An inexplicable aura also quietly rose on his body. Click. Ah. Scarlet bloodshots kept tangling on the white of his eyes. The whole person looked as hideous and terrifying as a prajna in hell. 510. It hurts. It hurts me to death. At this moment, Sugimoto only felt that his whole body's blood was being ignited by an inexplicable power. It seemed that countless ants were eating his flesh and blood. His whole body, his soul, the intense pain that penetrates the soul and the scorching heat engraved in the bones. Let him kneel directly on the ground, holding the head that was about to explode with both hands. There was a grimly roar of pain. Ah, you lie to me, lie to me. Listening to Sugimoto's sorrow, the people who were still envious just now looked at each other, and even took a few steps back gently. What's the situation? Isn't it said that drinking holy water can cure all diseases and regain youth? How do you think Sugimoto is so painful? I don't know, maybe it's drugs. Damn, did they dare to play me? My subordinates have surrounded this place. If there is any accident, none of these guys will want to live. Who can do business in this situation? There is no one who is easy to do. All are cruel, deep-minded people. To make them completely trust this state religion is simply idiotic dreams. Everyone is fully prepared before coming back. It was so painful seeing Sugimoto who was the first to drink the dark thing. Their hearts sank. Between frowning lightly, their respective thoughts suddenly appeared on their faces. However, their gathering behavior fell into the eyes of the believer. A disdainful smile appeared on the corner of the believer's mouth. Advertisement. Immortal is immortal, still intoxicated in the world of ignorance. Just when some of them couldn't bear their temper and wanted to call their subordinates. Click. Pung. A huge crack appeared on the originally intact ground in an instant. The cracks like a spider web are intertwined and intertwined. Densely, the entire ground composed of marble was cracked. What's the situation? Everyone's hearts were suddenly shocked. I only saw that Sugimoto, who was still in pain just now, slowly stood up from the ground. There was a black breath floating all over. There was a little scarlet in his eyes. The soles of his feet pressed hard again. Click. Then the ground where thunder cracks had already appeared burst again. There was an overwhelmed scream. His top hat has been blown away by that power. Black hair continued to grow on the top of his bald head, and then it grew wildly. In a blink of an eye, he already had black hair. The wrinkles in the corners of the eyes are constantly converging, and the skin is constantly becoming firmer. The age spots are long gone. Jiro Sugimoto, who is in his 50s, is simply a teenager in his 20s. This scene deeply shocked all wealthy businessmen. They originally wanted to get youth, even if only for 1 or 2 years. But what I did not expect is, Sugimoto just drank a glass of holy water, and he actually recovered to his 20s. And more importantly, the terrifying power in Sean itself was simply too shocking. This group of wealthy businessmen also claimed to be big men who had met the world. I have also seen ruthless people who can give birth to tigers and leopards in the black boxing arena below. But such an understatement will cause the so-called hardest ground in the world to step on the strange force. It was beyond imagination. Guru. Each of them swallowed and spit involuntarily. If you can get this power. My lord, I am adding 10 children. Let me have a drink. Fart. 10 children are ashamed to say, Lord God Envoy, I will come 15. I'm 20. Advertisement. In order to be able to get the power they crave so much earlier, this group of guys kept raising their prices. Only the businessman who had a big belly at first. A deeply hidden panic appeared in his eyes. Looking at the crazy wealthy businessmen in the audience. The believer shook his head in disappointment. He looked at Sugimoto, who was exuding terrifying power, and said a few meaningful words. It's really unlucky, the first guy didn't expect failed. I thought there would be a few lucky people who were favored by the Lord, now it seems. It's really a bunch of poor bugs. The wealthy businessmen who were completely caught up in madness did not even notice the self-talking whispers of the believers. And the businessman with a big belly, slowly faded his body towards the back. The left hand seems to be inserted into the pants randomly, but it is actually making a seal with one hand. Shish, don't disturb the Lord. The believer stretched out a finger to block his mouth, but this group of guys who were dazzled by desire, how could they take care of this, shouted loudly. What they didn't notice was that there was a trace of tyranny hidden in the believer's eyes. A bunch of unreasonable beasts. Take it away. He spoke to the Sugimoto who hadn't been talking since he drank the holy water, as if ordering. Base. Next moment. Before the other party has time to make any response. Where are you going, the great Jujutsu master? There was an extremely gentle voice in his ear. Wipe. Hung. P.S. This chapter links the Gojo Satoru article to the transition of the original plot. Between immortality and ordinary, if you were you, how would you choose? This punch goes down. The pot-bellied businessman had already rubbed behind the door of the church for some time, and was about to withdraw from this place of right and wrong. A wealthy businessman beside him was about to scream, and a punching bag was punched directly into his mouth. What? The ground broke again, and Sugimoto's figure appeared among the group of wealthy businessmen. His head is exploded like a watermelon, red and yellow, splashing everywhere. Chapter 232. Advertisement. There was an extremely gentle voice in his ear. Where are you going, the great Jujutsu master? Obviously a gentle voice. But it fell in his ears, and it was indeed a bit more terrifying than the Shura evil spirits of hell. His whole body is chilly. Base. The fat body exploded out of tyrannical bounce power in an extremely disharmonious manner, and leapt a few steps behind him. He saw the owner of that voice. It is a man dressed in a black priest costume. Those black eyes deeply attracted everyone's minds. Extreme flow. The curse power of his whole body quickly condenses, and between Zumi, his power almost instantly spreads all over his body. But, next moment, he just felt that his head was a little groggy. There was a faint flower in front of him. He saw a somewhat fat figure appeared before his eyes. Is that my body? Click. His head fell to the ground, and he rolled a few laps unwillingly. As a first-level Jujutsu master, he died so unclearly. It was almost the moment his head fell. In the entire courtyard. 23 except for those believers in white clothes, there is no life left. It failed again. It is almost difficult for ordinary people to resist the blood of cursed spirit. I knew it, I should let the great Jujutsu master help. The priest's tone was a bit playful. Looking at the body of the fallen Jujutsu teacher, he said meaningfully. But it doesn't matter, you did me a big favor. Next, my test material can be upgraded. Hee. A chuckle in the courtyard becomes eternal. The priest's figure and everything around him became illusory. In the end, the magnificent church suddenly turned into an extremely dilapidated courtyard. Advertisement. Fuso, Tokyo. The State Church of God. Nanami Kento frowned slightly with a mission report in his hand. Since that day, Nanami Kento abruptly obtained a right from the Jujutsu Association. Ignoring all the original regulations of the Jujutsu Association, it does not comply with the dispatch when receiving state support. In other words, All Things House now has the qualification to receive any information about the Jujutsu world. It has the equivalent of Jujutsu Association and Jujutsu High School's General Intelligence Network transmission, but it does not need to comply with the deployment of Jujutsu World. All the action rules of the House of All Things are based on the will of the boss, Zenin Ryuichi, as the highest trend. Since the Jujutsu Association signed this unequal treaty under the pressure of Ryuichi's strength and the strong demand of Nanami Kento, the tasks of the House of All Things have become unusually numerous. The tasks and information exchanges of the various forces will fall into Nanami's hands as soon as possible. Originally, according to the rules of the House of Everything, these vital things should be managed by Zenin Ryuichi. It was like the number one that was eliminated by Ryuichi, holding all the information in his hands. However, when Nanami talked to Ryuichi about this matter, Ryuichi said that he should solve the trouble he caused by himself. This right, which has made countless families in the Jujutsu world jealous, has become a problem in Ryuichi's mouth. And staring at the name of the second boss Share. At the moment Nanami looked at him, he jumped out of the window and left. This trouble naturally fell into Nanami's hands. The report in his hand at this moment is different from the past. This task is a commission issued by the Jujutsu Association Joint Academy to Jujutsu teachers from all over the country. The target range actually includes the wildcat that they have always looked down on. It is also a promise, as long as it can get information that is more than the state religion. Then you can incorporate wildcat into the association. All of a sudden, Fuso Jujutsu world is surging, but out of intuition, Nanami always feels that there is a lot of trouble behind this matter. With his fingers on his brows, he kneaded slightly. If he was able to rely on his ability, this kind of task that made him feel a little bit bad, he would just throw it away without even looking at it. Single quote. But this time, this task document was sent by Gojo himself. He didn't find Ryuichi who didn't know where to go wandering, so he asked himself to take this task. Be sure to follow. This mission will be very interesting, and Ryuichi will definitely like it. Gojo Satoru's tone of voice echoed in his mind as if he was fooling a child. Let him just feel that the senior Gojo who will be directly introduced to Ryuichi. Advertisement. Inexplicably makes people feel a bit of a headache. Brother Nanami, what's wrong? A man's voice awakened Nanami from his contemplation. The man in front of him was the one who was sent to try Ryuichi by the curse hall that day, but because he was afraid, he refused to say anything to join the House of All Things. When he said it at the time, it was just to hug his brother and his life. I didn't think so much at all. But these words were remembered by Zen and Share. In Shire's view, these guys are simply born cheap labor. The strength is good, the personality is good, and a bit clever. The most important thing is, no need to pay. So after the incident ended, Shire directly brought back their 4 live treasures. When facing Ryuichi in a sober state, these guys knelt when they came up. Directly from the preparatory law enforcer of the Temple of Curse, he became the open black lens bracket temporary worker close black lens bracket of the House of All Things. As long as he let the wind go, maybe even big 3 sorcerer families might come to visit. Can't help but feel a little curious. This Nanami is a bit younger than himself. How could he not be curious about the task that can make such monsters feel distressed? Also known as Backpot Man. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. But I want to be considered an intern by a guy of Zenin Ryuichi's level. Until now. Right now, the 3 guys were all out to perform the task. Just when Huo returned from completing the task, he saw Nanami with frowning brows. During this period of time, he has been busy with the development of the House of Everything, and the news and intelligence of the State Church of God have only been written in words. Nanami put the task on the table. But, what's more, he is an intern who has almost all the rights in the House of Everything. Rapidly improving combat power, absolute rational thinking, and the enviable jujutsu. From Huo's point of view, it was a monster through and through. How could it be an ordinary person? You know, there are countless guys who want to join Ryuichi House of Everything. Except for the vagrant who holds the title of second boss from Shire, the regular employees of Wanshiwu have only Nanami Kento as an intern and the only intern. But he knew that the real news came from word of mouth. Chapter 233. Advertisement. He looked at the fire and clasped his hands together on the tabletop. Whispered, how much do you know about the state religion of God? The State Church of God. Huo repeated Nanami's question again, and the expression on his face became a little more jealous. He comes from one of 100 families. Although Nanami doesn't care about some of the inside stories, he listens very truthfully. He has heard a lot of rumors about the State Church of God. Nanami, we still don't participate in the matter of the state religion of God. In this matter, the water is deeper than we thought. Huo looked at Nanami seriously. After contacting him during this period of time, he discovered that although Nanami Kento had a perverted talent, he was unexpectedly able to listen to persuasion in nature. There is no arrogance of those geniuses in the family. It seems that the sand sculpture thought that the whole world is circling around them does not appear in Nanami's body. Senior, what do you mean? Nanami looked at the fire very seriously. Everything related to the House of Everything, in Nanami's eyes, is something bigger than the sky. The boss took responsibility for everything in the House of All Things. The Kingdom of God first appeared in Osaka. At that time, there was an elderly businessman who had been diagnosed in the hospital and had almost been sentenced to death by current technology. When the old man went home and waited for his death, he met a priest dressed in black, who claimed to be the leader of the state church, after he gave the old man a glass of holy water. The old man actually stood up from the wheelchair magically, and what was even more shocking was that the old man in his 60th year had actually begun to regain his youth. Became more than 40 years old. That old man became famous in the Fuzang consortium, and his story was spread everywhere. In order to gain youth, countless wealthy businessmen began to seek the state religion of God. Then they disappeared one after another. Quote, the sound of the fire paused slightly, picked up an unopened can of Coke on the table, took a big sip, and continued. Later, when the Jujutsu Association noticed this incident, it started looking for the old man, and finally, in the old man's bedroom, he found the old man's bones. Ordinary doctors have judged that the old man died within 15 hours. But, judging by a professional curse doctor, this old man has been dead for more than a year. In other words, it was not the old man who appeared before the eyes of the world at that time, or it was a possibility. He doesn't know his death. He doesn't know his death. Huo and Nanami Kento uttered these words almost at the same time. Jujutsu that makes people forget death. It's still said that it was replaced by an imposter bone. Advertisement. Although it's a bit weird, but if only this is the case, it won't cost the Jujutsu Association such a high price. Nanami folded his fists together and pressed his chin on his palm. Staring at the fire scorchingly. The fire coming out of the curse hall must have a very wide network of contacts, and some news that hasn't spread, maybe he will also know. A first-level Jujutsu teacher was killed in seconds. After a long while, Huo Kai said quietly, what? Nanami was shocked, rarely seen. It is true that the first-level Jujutsu teacher is not a great man. Even the fire is a first-class Jujutsu division. But it is a completely different concept to be able to kill the first-level Jujutsu division instantly. Generally speaking, the strength of the Jujutsu division far exceeds the cursed spirit of the same level. The first-level Jujutsu master can crush the first-level cursed spirit, and can match the super level, and can even eliminate it. This level of existence, unless it is facing premium. There is a super Jujutsu teacher in the Kingdom of God. Nanami has not considered the possibility of cursed spirit at all, because cursed spirit is almost unnecessary if it does this. Even if it is a super class with human wisdom, there is no need to target these wealthy businessmen. Is it for money? This news is absolutely accurate, because the Jujutsu teacher who died. It's from the Cursed Temple. Now the Kingdom of God is not only an investigation of the power of Jujutsu, but also the supreme power of the Cursed Temple. There must be secrets we don't know. Forget it, even if it is a task sent by Gojo Satoru, there is no need to take it. Nanami heard Huo's words, and a tangled eyebrow rose again. The hands are constantly crossed by mistake. Just wanted to say something. Suddenly the ear moved slightly. The expression on his face also changed in vain. There was a slight smile at the corner of his mouth. His eyes became extremely firm. Advertisement. He picked up a seal that contained the House of Everything in his hand. Severely deducted on the task list. Diaresis, this task, the House of Everything has taken it. There was a wave of curse power floating on the document, which was to send a message to the Jujutsu division who had all accepted this task. With strong support, joined this mission. Why? He looked at Nanami in a puzzled manner. Although he didn't really say the power of it, with Nanami's wisdom, he didn't believe that the other party couldn't understand it. Not why, because the boss has spoken. Hearing this, a trace of clarity appeared on Huo's face. It's been a long time since I saw Zenin Ryuichi, he almost forgot, this House of Everything is the power of that man. If it were him. Haha, well, let's mourn for the State Church of God. If the boss makes a move, everyone has no fun. Ryuichi lay lazily on the rooftop. The wisteria rocking chair swayed gently. He seemed to be a little tired and found his body in a comfortable position. His leaders sighed. Countless strange scriptures slowly surging again. It seems that all the mysteries of the world are flowing in that scripture. Curse the island, curse the fetus, half man and half curse, the state religion of God. It's really interesting. In Ryuichi Yu's white eyes, it seemed as if Zhou Tian's countless smiles passed through them. Within the interior, the information on the State Church of God occupies almost half of the interior. If Ryuichi can solve this kind of calculation now, even he has to pay a big price. But, even if you can't get a complete glimpse of the future. However, Feng Chi Men's progress is soaring that Ryuichi can already remove a few bits of splinters in the interior scene. Relying on these fragments is enough. The disappearance of the curse on the island of the curse, and the cause and effect of Ryuichi are very far-reaching. Since this incident hit his head, Then I can only blame that guy's bad luck. Chapter 234. Advertisement. From the perspective of time, things that seem to be Tianyuanjiao are going to happen too. A faint ball of light above Ryuichi's palm was slowly flashing an inexplicable halo. There seems to be countless future evolutions. This is move. Move that can move all the forces in the world. Ryuichi vaguely remembered that in the original book, Gojo Satoru had a mission that changed his life when he was in the 2nd grade. Tianyuan Church. Protect the young girl who was about to become Master Tianyuan's stand-in. It was after this mission that Gojo Satoru completely became invincible in the original book. But now because of the appearance of Ryuichi, the original trajectory of this world has been broken. Gojo Satoru, who was supposed to be able to master the true power of his jujutsu after this incident is over. Under Ryuichi's pressure, he had already figured out the power of the unrestricted technique for a long time, and even thought of his true power, the power of empty he called fantasy. Although Ryuichi changed the trajectory of Gojo Satoru. But it cannot change the appearance of this mission. The mission of the astral body still fell on Gojo and Yu. Ryuichi, who should have nothing to do with this matter, can use move to capture the future in it. Many years after Ryuichi came to this world, the gears of fate finally began to turn slowly. The best. In the original work, the so-called state religion never appeared. And all of this appeared because of Ryuichi's arrival. No, it should be said that all of this appeared in advance because of Ryuichi. Ryuichi lazily looked at the light and shadow in his hand. There was a somewhat inexplicable smile at the corner of his mouth. Master Tianyuan, what kind of existence it is, this made Ryuichi extremely curious. An old man who has survived thousands of years. An old man who carried the entire Jujutsu world with his body. Is he really that selfless? Putting the entire Jujutsu world on his shoulders does not mean that he has also pinched the entire Jujutsu world in the palm of his hand. More importantly, advertisement. When Ryuichi wants to use the interior view to predict Tianyuan. The light ball that appeared almost filled the entire interior. There are only 2 possibilities for this situation. One is that Tianyuan's strength is dozens of times stronger than Ryuichi. Ryuichi is very unbelief. After all, he is 10 times stronger than Ryuichi. It is simply a fantasy. The second type means that everything in Tianyuan itself is closely related to Zenin Ryuichi himself. In the future, there will be countless causes and effects between the two of him. This made Ryuichi's interest in his heart even more intense. God State Church, Tianyuan Church. There should be no connection between the two, but Ryuichi has an unspeakable intuition, that is, there must be a certain connection between the two. The intuition brought by 6 Immortal Thief Treasury is almost equivalent to prediction. Interesting things are coming. A dark and ugly finger floated in front of Ryuichi at some point. These 2 fingers are the fingers of Ryōmen Sukuna that Ryuichi obtained by removing the super cursed spirit in the ocean that day. Above the fingers, the weird curse power kept intertwining. Like a demon from the abyss of hell. The magic flame that made people feel palpitation slowly rose. In Ryuichi's moon-white eyes, an azure-blue 8 strand slowly turned. Sukuna's fingers, God State Church and Tianyuan Church, are closely connected by 3 thick lines of cause and effect. Ryōmen Sukuna, I really look forward to seeing you. I really want to know, the power of your 20 fingers, how many fingers are on top of me? Base. When the voice fell, Ryuichi's figure burst into an astonishing spell. In the next moment, his figure had disappeared on the rooftop. Only the graceful and luxurious wisteria rocking chair was still swaying slowly on the rooftop. At the same time, Zenin was sitting on a bench in the park. In front of him was a stupid kid. The guy looked young, but his face was inexplicably mature. It's different from Nanami's maturity. This kid exudes an indescribable, masculine taste. You kid, do you really want to worship me as a teacher? Shi-er looked at the boy who suddenly appeared in front of him, kneeling down on his own, and asked softly. Advertisement. He just didn't know how many times since he was rejected by his son. Just ran to the park and drank sullen wine alone. After accidentally stomping on the ground of the park with a kick, he was stared at by this stupid kid. Without a word, he just fell to his knees on the ground. What to say is to defeat yourself as a teacher. If according to Shi-er's past character, he would have ignored the little devil who didn't even look like a cat long ago. But today's Shire is very different from the past. After Nanami Kento joined the House of All Things, he was basically a salted fish, except for the occasional one need to perform several tasks. Basically he was like Ryuichi as a shopkeeper. After the Jujutsu Association incident, he captured the 4 live treasures as temporary workers, and became a salted fish completely. After feeling the benefits of the tool man, inexplicably, people are more interested in crawling tools. However, there are too many people who want to join the House of Everything. After the child answered the question. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Each is a real first-level jujutsu teacher. And those who can be used as a tool by Share are even rarer, and he hasn't seen a single one of them up to now. I asked you why you want to apprentice a teacher. You answer me this, are the children now a little too mature? He stood up suddenly from the ground. Although they didn't even have a chance to shoot in front of Ryuichi and Shire, it didn't mean that their strength was weak. The little devil in front of him was knocking on the ground, how could he not get up? And since those 4 living treasures can join the Curse Palace, it has already explained their strength. And this guy definitely has curse power and Jujutsu's presence. A pair of eyes were round and round, they weren't really big. The reason why Cher was able to sit here so patiently was because she saw this kid's tyrannical physical quality, and at this age, he was at best the same as him. Hearing this answer, several black lines appeared involuntarily on Shier's head. My name is Todo Aoi, please let me practice with you to become a real man. In his eyes, Shire, who wears heavenly restriction, is as conspicuous as a light in the night sky. I like women with big butts and tall guys. That silly boy, the donkey lips were not right, and he answered Cher's question. In this generation, Nanami Kento's talent, except for Gojo, Shiryu and others, almost stood on the top of the mountain. Chapter 235. Advertisement. Todo Aoi's eyes were round, but helplessly, his eyes were too small, even if they worked very hard, they were not half as big as Shir's eyes. He seriously saw Zen and Cher sitting on the bench, his tone extremely firm. Even with some tears inexplicably. Teacher, please teach me how to become a real man. Todo Aoi wanted revenge for the Ryuichi who scared herself to pee on that day. I hone my physique in the park every day. Even without his knowledge, even the curse power and the prototype of Jujutsu have begun to show up. Compared with that day, his strength has improved a huge step. But his strong fighting instincts let Todo Aoi know that he has now 100 opponents that are not the man's total. Until just now, I saw that she trampled the ground out of a huge crack with a random foot. Todo Aoi felt it right away. He seemed to see a glimmer of dawn in the endless darkness. I must worship him as a teacher. This idea became the only one in Todo Aoi's mind. This future brain patch, now it has shown its potential. In his mind, he has become the apprentice of the man in front of him. The two sweated together in the sunset. In the afterglow of the setting sun, bathe in hot springs. In the back mountain of the sports field, running sweating profusely. There were tears in Todo Aoi's eyes. Obviously only 1 second has passed by outside time. But it seems that he has worshipped Cher as a teacher for many years. Teacher, I will not let you down. Listen to the yelling of the child in front of you. Shire only felt that there were countless question marks flying around on his head. What does this hapless kid say? If Shire hadn't been immersed in the joy of the capture tool man, he would have left long ago, then he would have taken care of the hapless kid. Heavenly restriction can not only bring a super strong body but also give a terrifying intuition. Although it is far from the metamorphosis level of 6 Immortal Thief Treasury, which is close to prediction. But she could also feel that the stunned young boy in front of him must have something to do in the future. Advertisement. And even if there is no such perception. This physical power of Todo Aoi is coupled with Jujutsu in his body. It is simply the perfect tool man. What's more, the current house of everything has Nanami, who is sitting in front of him, and it's perfect to give him the job of taking the children. Think of it here. A smile appeared at the corner of Zenin's mouth. He took a sip of the cold beer in his hand. The eyes are slightly condensed. You kid, it takes a lot of hardship to worship me as a teacher. Man, not afraid of hardship. Afraid of hardship, not a man. As he spoke, Todo Aoi's fist was on his chest, G loudly. An extremely bright light burst out in his eyes. It's like being a man, what an amazing goal. Interesting, come with me, let me see what kind of man you can become. Inexplicably, Shire looked at Todo Aoi in front of him, and suddenly there was a glimmer of anticipation in his heart. What kind of oolong would such an energetic guy put in the house of everything? The thought of Nanami Kento with a serious face and this dumb and blue boy together made Shire feel a little funny. Nanami boy, in order not to make your life too boring, I hired this boy, don't thank me too much. Shire thought with nasty and funny thoughts in his heart. And Todo Aoi walking beside Shire. Look at the smirk at the corner of his teacher's mouth. A bit embarrassed, he scratched his head and said. Teacher, can I ask you a question? Shire, who was called a teacher, only felt a little uncomfortable all over. Over the years, some people call him the executioner, some call him the devil, and some call him the beast. Only no one called him a teacher. Even those curse masters who have learned countless assassination techniques in his hands have never called him that way. There was an inexplicable throbbing in his heart. He remained alone until he was beaten to the ground by Ryuichi and became an employee of Wanshia. That was the first time that Shire was defeated in his life, and it was also the first time he realized that failure was not so uncomfortable. Since when, a large group of people have also appeared around him, which is simply a dream for the always lonely Shire. Seeking flowers. Boy, if you have any questions, just ask. Advertisement. He stretched out his hand and touched Todo Aoi's rounded head, only to feel that the boy's hair was a little bit prickly. Teacher, what kind of woman do you like? As Todo Aoi said this sentence, Shilton, who was still a little inexplicable just now, only felt that there were a few more black lines on his head. Even a few quacky crows flew past the sky. Knit meow. With Peng's sound, Shi-Er kicked Toto Aoi's A*, as if kicking a ball, and kicked the kid towards the park gate. The downside is that Toto Aoi has thick skin. For a few people, he might have been kicked and passed out. Seeing Toto Aoi flying across the air like a ball. The expression on his face was unexplainably put on a bit of firmness. This is the teacher's test. Yes, it must be. Everyone thought he was moved by the indoctrination of his mentor Zenin Shi-Er. However, fantasy is always beautiful, but reality is always cruel. Even if Shin Peng's butt is kicked so hot and painful now. Until many years later, it became one of the well-deserved leaders in the Jujutsu world. I can definitely become a good man and defeat that devil. Toto Aoi, who is called a real man by the world, bursts into tears when he thinks about his current journey. The whole body is equipped with all weapons won, and found the legendary hidden master, who is about to practice magical skills. Only Toto Aoi knew that it was his innocence that he was crying. Earth. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. The wailing of the cursed spirit, the devil's whisper, surrounded his ears. Then defeat the legendary great demon. His heart was also extremely excited. I seem to have become a hero. What he didn't know was that what awaited him was not a mysterious valley, but a serious, house with 4 live treasures. That handsome black-haired guy with a smile is like a devil in hell. In the mind of Toto Aoi. In his brain Phil. And his immediate boss in the future is the great demon he has always wanted to defeat, Zenin Ryuichi. Chapter 236. Advertisement. So this mission is to protect Master Tianyuan's future carrier. Gojo Satoru is sitting on the desk, holding a stack of papers in his hand, frowning slightly. Looking at the picture of the young and beautiful woman on the file. The fingers tapped lightly on the table a few times. Clang clang. The crisp impact sound became the main theme of the entire classroom. This Jujutsu world is the youngest and almost the most powerful Jujutsu teacher. Feeling a bit boring inexplicably. Gojo Satoru in the original book has no resistance to this mission. After all, Lord Tianyuan, as the core of the entire Jujutsu world, his life and views are higher than everything in the Jujutsu world. But, perhaps because of the emergence of Ryuichi, butterflies on the other side of the ocean fan their wings, and a storm may occur on the other side of the ocean. I have mastered the dream that does not exist in the finite and infinite, which is called to wash away all the power of emptiness. Let Gojo Satoru cooperate with 6 eyes at the same time to see the non-existent reality for a short time. The so-called non-existence is an abstract and unrealistic reality. With 6 eyes, he can see a distorted and absurd world, and this world is a metaphor for everything that will happen in the future. He saw that his future would undergo a huge change after this mission. But what is strange is that there have been changes in his future, that is to say, before the original orbit, he has been affected by people and changed his destiny. Zenin Ryuichi's expression that seemed to never wake up slowly appeared in his mind. In this world, if there is a guy who can change his own destiny, then he is the only one. The rest. There was a chuckle at the corner of Gojo Satoru's mouth. Busy. For this strongest who stood at the apex at birth, only his kind is qualified to participate in his destiny. The above mentioned that if we are to take this mission, it is said that there will be a lot of fakes, and I don't want Master Tianyuan to be able to successfully transfer to the star source body. But that is also normal. After all, that person is the core of the Jujutsu world. Under the barrier he constructed, the life of those guys is really not easy. Sha Yuji leaned her body on the windowsill, still smiling like that. A black ball was pinched between the palms, as if playing with some kind of antique. For the cursed division and cursed spirit, the existence of Master Tianyuan is the greatest restraint that hinders them. Master Tianyuan who owns Immortal Jujutsu. Advertisement. Although he is not young, his curse power can almost cover half of the hibiscus. Any mantra power fluctuations that exceed a limit set by Master Tianyuan will cause a mantra power warning. It's like a Skynet, reminding the major families, Jujutsu Association, Academy and others of abnormal events. Under this kind of power, the rats hiding in the sewers did not dare to perform tasks outside for a long time, for fear of being perceived by Master Tianyuan, and being strangled by several major forces. Therefore, they hated Tianyuan. Although Tianyuan is immortal, it is not that he is not old. His body has long been unable to bear his huge curse power. The so-called immortality is immortality above the soul and will. And his body is always in a state of aging. Therefore, in order to ensure that Tianyuan can protect the Jujutsu world forever. In less than 500 years, all the high levels in the Jujutsu world will look for an astral body that fits with it to communicate with Lord Tianyuan. So as to achieve the function of refreshing physical intelligence. As long as Tianyuan can be prevented from acquiring new stellar slurry, then the entire world will become an unable place. No matter how strong Gojo and others are, they cannot supervise the entire world. Therefore, countless dark forces have already focused on the astral body. Their purpose is only one, and that is to kill the star pulp. Let the protector of Jujutsu world be completely destroyed. It sounds like a lot of suffering, we seem to be in trouble. Gojo Satoru looked at Sha Yu in a frivolous tone. Although he was somewhat reluctant in his heart, Master Tian Yuan was indeed too important. His life cannot be lost. It's really troublesome. Regardless of the information I have obtained, no fewer than a dozen forces are planning to do it. So what? Gojo Satoru interrupted Sha Yuji's words and suddenly stood up from the table and chair. The sunlight hit his silver-white head, with a bit of unspeakable freedom. We are the strongest. Talking. Gojo Satoru had already appeared next to Sha Yuji, and put his arms around his partner's shoulders. As if there is no bone, most of the weight of the body is pressed on Sha Yu's body. An inexplicable smile also rose from the corner of Sha Yu's mouth. Yes, we are the strongest. Where Gojo Satoru didn't see it, his palm was gently stroking on a small black stone tablet. Advertisement. If I can succeed, Gojo, maybe I can really be the strongest in your mouth. Sha Yuji sighed secretly in her heart. Only when I have seen the real power can I understand how superficial I am. In the face of Yeming, he couldn't hold on to a single move and was beaten to the ground. Ryuichi almost eliminated Yeming in a slaying posture. Gojo Satoru was in a deadlock, but Sha Yuji believed that with Gojo Satoru's amazing combat IQ and the abnormal physique that has rapidly improved during the battle, you can definitely die desperately. Compared with these two people, he is simply the radiance of fireflies, glimpsing the light of the sun and the moon. But fortunately, I still have a chance. Boom boom boom. Suddenly a knock on the door rang, interrupting Sha Yuji's thinking. Come in. Gojo Satoru looked out the door curiously. Next moment. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Generally speaking, knocking on the door before entering the door is a basic operation, but in Jujutsu Academy, there are a group of brainless men who are always knocked open or kicked off the door. According to your personality, hiding in the house of everything and sleeping a lot is the kingly way. Gojo Satoru has already appeared at the door. Long time no see, too. Hearing this voice, Gojo Satoru's eyes suddenly burst into light. The voice of a lazy teenager slowly sounded in the classroom. There is only one person in this world who can make Gojo say so. The gentlest is the airy Shoko, but he also gently pushed the door open. Base. That is the real owner of the house of everything, the lingering haze on the heads of the younger generation. Zenin Ryuichi. Knock on the door almost never happened in Jujutsu Academy. Even Sha Yuji, who was very worried, had a little interest in it. No one arrives, the sound is present. You fellow. It's really rare to come to the academy. The curse power surged instantly. Chapter 237. Advertisement. Ryuichi is still the same as in the past, with black hair tied into a bun, quite a bit of a king. Looking at Gojo Satoru who appeared in front of him, he waved his hand casually. Good afternoon, Gojo. Then the body appeared on the seat of the classroom with a chuckle between a subtle shaking. Drowsy, lying on the table, as if he would fall asleep at any time. Gojo Satoru and Sha Yuji also surrounded them. I was surprised to see Ryuichi. Is Zenin Ryuichi's strength unquestionable? As a friend, he is a trustworthy mountain, but his character is simply too lazy. If no one called him, or if nothing happened, he could almost always lie in his rocking chair without getting up. It is incredible for such a guy to come to Jujutsu Academy without any invitation. You guy, why are you here? Gojo Satoru took a stool, sat down on it, pressed his chin against the edge of the chair, and asked curiously. Ask your teacher. Ryuichi lazily rubbed his messy hair 23, and quietly looked at the door of the classroom. I saw the doorway. Suddenly a tall figure appeared, with a standard Chinese character face, with a pair of dark sunglasses, with a serious expression like a police officer. He looked at the three young people in the classroom with a little relief on his face. If in the future era, if young people can have half of these three, then even in the fierce and terrifying cursed spirit, the Jujutsu community can naturally suppress it firmly. Ms. Masamiki, why are you wearing a black suit again today? It's really earthy. Gojo Satoru suddenly seemed to raise his hand to ask a question, raising his left hand, but what he said was an extraordinarily beating. Sha Yuji also quietly covered her mouth with one hand, and said in Ryuichi's ear. Look at Mrs. Masamiki, does it look like a gorilla in a suit? Puff. As soon as he said this, a strong silverback gorilla suddenly appeared in Ryuichi's mind, wearing a suit and holding a needle and thread in his hand while sewing a doll. The corner of his mouth just couldn't help but twitch. A black line appeared on Yaga Masamiki's face. Next moment. Advertisement. Dwang. Dwang. After two muffled noises, Sha Yu and Gojo each had two more big bags of love on their heads. You two, when you were performing the task just now, you left the supervisor aside, said you could put the tent down, and then you ran away by yourself. In the end, I didn't even set up an account. Let's talk about who it is. Sha Yuji's finger quietly nodded Gojo aside. And Ryuichi, who was lying on the table, looked at Gojo Satoru with the kind of eyes that I guessed it was you. I feel that the atmosphere in the room is starting to turn wrong. And the teacher's eyes gradually became sharp. Gojo Satoru suddenly raised a hand and said, Teacher, can I quibble? Dwang. Then he got double love on his head. It's such a troublesome guy. Yaga held his head with one hand, looking like a headache. In terms of strength and talent, Gojo Satoru is definitely an outstanding student worthy of the name. It is this frivolous character that is really big. Looking at Gojo Satoru with a bored face, Ryuichi who is so sleepy, and Shayuji who smiles like Gojo can listen to everything. He felt again. Oh shit. Destroy it without saving. Jujutsu World. He forcefully suppressed the soul of Tukao in his heart. Seriously looked at the three people under the podium and said. Student Ryuichi, you have already seen that piece of information. Regarding the remuneration for letting you participate in this mission, the academy is ready. Thank you very much for helping me with this. Yaga Masamiki looked at Ryuichi sincerely. Ryuichi got up from the desk and said, rubbing his somewhat distressed eyes. Teacher Yaga is polite. I said during the prince's test that I owe the academy once, not to mention that it was a fair deal this time. But is it really necessary? Should we dispatch 3 special grades for one mission? Ryuichi's words also asked Gojo and Shayu's questions. Even though there are many organizations that want to assassinate astral plasma, the candidates for this mission are too luxurious. Advertisement. You know, the current Gojo Satoru is several times stronger than the one in the original book, and Shayuji's control over the cursed spirit is also a few steps higher because of Ryuichi's oppression. The combination of these two people was almost invincible before the group of sleeping monsters appeared for thousands of years. On top of this combination, Zenin Ryuichi should be added. This task seems not as simple as imagined. Hearing this question, Yaga Masamiki's face felt a bit bitter. His hands were pressed on the top of the desk, looking at everyone with blazing eyes. In the case of Master Tianyuan, there is already a large part of the information, but there is still a part, there is no way to stream and write. Quiet. Yaga Masamiki pinched the tactics with one hand, and a tyrannical curse power instantly unfolded centered on him. Wrap this classroom in it. The barrier that can cut off all sounds. Quiet. What I say next is the top secret of the Jujutsu world. Please be sure to keep it secret. Don't worry, take people's money and get rid of disasters. This is my Zenin Ryuichi's rules. Ryuichi's slender fingers kept tapping on the table, staring at Yaga Masamiki on the podium. For Ryuichi, the world is free and unconstrained, so the only thing he has to abide by is his own mind. The House of All Things is not only the place that provided him with money in the first place, but also one of the constraints set by himself. I believe in you, classmate Ryuichi. Then Yaga Masamiki's voice paused slightly. It's like organizing language. Tianyuan-sama Jujutsu. You all know, immortality does not mean immortality, but the reason for changing his body is not because his body can't bear the aging. It's to stop Master Tianyuan's evolution. Evolution. Hearing this word, a row of question marks rose on the heads of Gojo and Natsuyu, and only Ryuichi knew what was going on. Yes, evolution. If it were simply immortality, it would actually be less troublesome, but as time accumulates, Master Tianyuan's art will try to change his body. It will evolve into a higher dimensional existence. Beyond human beings, cursed spirit, and even the gods recorded in Jujutsu's history. Higher dimension. Chapter 238. Advertisement. Yaga Masamiki spoke loudly, with a tone that was different from the usual solemnity. According to Master Tianyuan's self-report, once he reaches that stage, he doesn't seem to have what we call consciousness. In other words, all Jujutsu actions surrounding Master Tianyuan will come to an end. This is a good situation, and the worst is, Master Tianyuan may even become the enemy of mankind. So please be sure to complete this mission. It would be a terrible thing for an old man who has guarded mankind for countless years to become an enemy of mankind because of the loss of the astral body. Even the 3 judges in the curse hall were just a few dolls in Tianyuan's eyes. The whereabouts of the astral maiden has been exposed, and the one who wants to get rid of him is that he is trying to make Lord Tianyuan out of control and throw the Jujutsu world into chaos. Curse Stone Group Q. As well as belief and worship, the religion of Lord Tianyuan, Tianyuan sect can also be called Pangsing sect. Secretly, I don't know how many people are hiding. The most important thing is that the state religion may also take action. So I can only rely on the 3 of you. In the Jujutsu world at this moment, the Jujutsu Association has become precarious because of Ryuichi. Several major families have their own ghosts and are not right in their minds. Unless they destroy the world, they will not easily make a move. On the bright side, the strongest combination that can be used is these 3. In order to get Ryuichi to shoot, the academy paid a great price. The fusion of Master Tianyuan and that star slurry will take place on the night of the full moon 2 days later. Before that, the girl must be successfully protected and sent to Master Tianyuan. In case of failure, it will affect ordinary human society. Never take it lightly. Yaga Masamiki issued a serious warning again. Even the clouds outside the window seemed to perceive that his heart was slowly gloomy. Don't worry, sir, how could we fail? Gojo Satoru gave a big smile. In this world, even gods cannot stop them. They are the strongest. A ray of dawn broke through the layers of dark clouds and shone on the 3 of them. The back image of Zenin Ryuichi is like a canopy printed on the wall. Let me see, Master Tianyuan, are you really that great? Dot 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 dot. Tokyo, a certain street. Click. Advertisement. The automatic shopping machine made a clear sound. A can of Coke fell down. Gojo Satoru drank a sip of Coke, then looked at the two people next to him and said, "The organizations that want to assassinate the girl and Q naturally don't say much. But what Pangsing sect, isn't it an organization that worships and believes in Lord Tianyuan? Why kill the girl here?" Hearing this, the corners of Ryuichi's mouth took on a deep meaning. Because they worship the pure Lord Tianyuan, they cannot accept the astral slurry mixing into it, tarnishing their beliefs. Sha Yuji nodded. What Ryuichi said was almost the same as what he thought. This kind of religious organization is so boring. However, there is no need to care too much. Pangxingjiao is just a group of non-jujutsu teachers. The main goal we get is still Q. No, if you look down on Pangsing, you will have unexpected troubles waiting for you. Ryuichi looked at Sha Yu leisurely. Do you know anything? Sha Yu frowned when she heard this. Zenin Ryuichi's words were obviously something in the words. However, Ryuichi obviously didn't want to explain too much, and he didn't want to say too much. He came to the front of Sha Yu in a few steps. You too. Why do you think so much? Gojo Satoru said in a puzzled tone while drinking Coke. It should be okay, you and Lao Su, but the strongest. Single quote. Otherwise, why would we be assigned to perform this mission? The breeze brushed his long silver hair, with a sense of confidence that he was dancing round by round, and he was indeed worthy of this confidence. Only, Zenin Ryuichi and Sha Yuji glanced at each other silently. It was like seeing something in each other's eyes. Sha Yu spoke first. Enlightenment, I wanted to say from the very beginning, you'd better not use lousy as the first person, especially in front of the elders. We may receive an interview from Master Tianyuan later. You have to say, Junior, or at least also call yourself me. And that will not scare the children. Ryuichi also looked at Gojo with a heartfelt expression, and said after looking at Gojo seriously. There is also the kind of inexplicable shouting that he is invincible, or something. I really don't feel embarrassed. Advertisement. Diaresis, it's just a social death. For a junior like you, it may not be your turn for a blind date at home in the future. If Sha Yuji's words were a bit cryptic, then Ryuichi's complaint to Gojo Satoru can be said to be a face-writing output. Hey, you two guys, when did the relationship become so good? Am I going to be together to even complain? The friendship between the damn three people is really too crowded. Looking at Gojo, who made a painful look, Ryuichi rolled his eyes. Rumble. Suddenly, a strong explosion sounded. There was a strong explosion in a building not far away. And that place is the hiding place of the astral girl. If that girl dies, will she be counted on as too? Gojo Satoru scratched his chin. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Suddenly regret why I didn't buy some popcorn just now. The girl with earphones slowly fell from her mouth. Ryuichi looked at the unconscious girl in his arms and moved his finger randomly. This guy will leave it to you. Fighting or something is too much trouble. Li Dahao sang. Unlucky boy, it's you, okay. A man in a military uniform with a mask on his face appeared in the air, and the curse power of his whole body was constantly twisting. A group of black cursed spirit continued to condense in his palm. In midair, the void is like flat ground, let him trample on it at will. Ryuichi put the girl on the long chair behind him, and looked at Gojo and Sha Yu as if he was about to watch a play. Sha Yu on the side had already spread out her palms. Ryuichi's figure is already free to shuttle in the space. On the occasion of the start of the mind-wandering mind. Base. Don't blame me. If you want to blame, go to Tianyuan. The next moment, the figure appeared on the ground again. Chapter 239. Advertisement. See Ryuichi behave like this. Gojo Satoru and Sha Yuji didn't feel any dissatisfaction either. Indeed, in the face of this kind of miscellaneous fish, you can kill it by moving your fingers at will. If there is the so-called Curse Division Group Q that has only this level of strength, then it can only be said. Jujutsu Academy is really an anti-aircraft artillery for fighting mosquitoes. Gojo Satoru and Sha Yuji are two of the only three specials on the surface. Zenin Ryuichi has become the only existence in the Jujutsu world who is not restricted by any restrictions after these several wars. The strengths of these three stand together. Even if it is to poke God out of a hole, it is not uncommon. Although the Curse Division wearing military uniform in the sky is quite good, but in the eyes of Ryuichi and others, there is no gap between him and the ants. Yunfu. Sha Yuji looked at Gojo Satoru as if he had no interest in making a move, and then he spread out his palm. A burst of black curse power surged from it. Next moment. A huge cursed spirit that looked like a bat appeared under his feet, dragging his body and flying towards the air. Huh, boy, look at your clothes, you guys from Jujutsu Academy. Master Curse looked at Sha Yuji with disdain. In his eyes, he was an extremely powerful Jujutsu master. Faced with this kind of kid, shot. It simply undermines his own majesty. There was a bit of deep disdain in his tone. Little did he know what kind of monsters he faced. Don't be so popular. There is a classmate among us who has been taught a lesson because of this. Sha Yuji faced this man who was very disdainful of him, and the expression on his face was still that of Mr. Good with a smile. Huh, you'd better let your friend hand over that girl, otherwise, I'll kill you. Lao Su is a first-class curse teacher, Koken. Advertisement. Kokwin's voice was very arrogant, like Sha Yuji in front of him. As long as he dared to refuse his request, he could blow the opponent's head in the next second. Sha Yuji's always smiling expressions, under the provocation of the other party, secretly converged. There was a smile at the corner of his mouth, and the pair of squinted eyes slowly opened, revealing a dangerous light. His voice became a little deep. I can't hear you. Can I trouble you? Come closer and say it again. The icy meaning of killing began to explode centered on Sha Yuji. The surrounding air is slightly condensed at this moment. Feeling the endless killing intent, a drop of cold sweat appeared on Kokwin's face. The instinct of the creature reminded him that what he will face is a beast far beyond himself. At the same time, in a tall building not far away, a man dressed as a black priest, enthusiastically watching what happened on the opposite side. There was also a black cigar in his hand. There was a weird smile on the corner of his mouth. Is this the super strength? It's really terrifying. Although it was terrible, the businessman on the side really heard a bit of disdain. This businessman was once the agent of Zenin Shire, the strongest bounty hunter, after Shire left. He hasn't had a better killer for a long time. However, the amount of commission by Pan Xingjiao was so much that he was jealous. Just when he was helpless, this man appeared in front of him. And one punch smashed the first-level cursed spirit that wanted to swallow him. Although the agent is just at waist without Jujutsu's curse power, he has followed Shire for many years, and his vision is not ordinary. This man who suddenly appeared and called himself a god was definitely able to surpass the first-level Jujutsu division and reach the super-standard existence. Mr. God, as long as you can kill the stellar slurry, Peng Xingwei will be willing to pay you 1.9 billion yen, and I only need 3% of it. Ha ha ha, money is a good thing. It represents human desire, all human dreams. Who doesn't love this kind of thing? Advertisement. As he spoke, a sickly red color appeared on God's face. An elegant goblet appeared out of thin air in his hand, but there was no fragrant wine in the crystal-clear crystal wine glass. Instead, it filled a whole cup of pitch-black liquid. The smell, stench, and decay was like the juice squeezed out of the sea of blood in the dead mountain. If it weren't for that agent, who had dealt with countless weirdos for so many years, and the Shira field would not know how many times he had been there, he would probably be unable to resist this stench and vomit. Gululu. God swallowed the black liquid in one mouthful, as if savoring some supreme delicacy, and the expression on his face was a little more inexplicable than before. He stretched out his scarlet tongue and licked away the black spots around his mouth. Looking at the scene outside the window, only the figure of Zenin Ryuichi was left in the pair of obscure eyes like an abyss. Money is the root of human society, and human beings are the root of the world. When one root wants to kill another root, it is so interesting. Mr. Broker, please help me with this task. Zenin Ryuichi, on the bench, put the girl aside. The pair of Yubai eyes suddenly lifted up and looked at the tall building. In the eyes, a strange gossip, slowly revolving. Ryuichi was thinking from the beginning. In the original work, at this point in time, only Zenin, who possesses heavenly restriction and is called the heaven and tyrant by the world, has the opportunity to hurt Gojo Satoru. And the fact is true, Gojo Satoru was stabbed into the brain by Zenin Shire, but the talented Gojo Satoru learned the reversal technique between life and death, and then killed Zenin Shire with a single blow. But because of the appearance of Zenin Ryuichi, this battle between Shire and Gojo Satoru is bound to be impossible. Now Shearman's mind is how to get his children back and deceive more tool people to do things for the house of all things. So, without new changes, almost no one in Jujutsu can stop Gojo Satoru and Sha Yuji from joining forces. But it is precisely because of the appearance of Zenin Ryuichi that the original trajectory of this world has been completely changed. He exploded the cursed island that should have appeared much later, and Yada, who was dormant in Death Canyon, was swallowed by the spirits, the lie was swallowed, and the door was shattered. Let these guys hiding in the deepest place appear in front of everyone in advance. You are Gojo Satoru. A crazy voice suddenly sounded. Ryuichi broke Ryuichi's thinking, and a rare impatience flashed in his eyes. Chapter 240. Advertisement. I'm really excited. My name is Bear, and I am the strongest person in the Q organization. I heard that you are very strong. Let me see how strong you little ghosts living in the ivory tower are. A man also wearing a military uniform appeared on the corner of the street. With a grinning smile on his face, a thunder-like curse in his hand continued to explode. Oh, Gojo Satoru pushed the sunglasses that fell above the bridge of his nose. Looking at Bear who came out curiously, there was a bit of abuse in his eyes. Boy, you're done, don't cry if you can't beat it. If you want to fight, I'll accompany you, but let's make a rule first. Rule. Gojo Satoru held his chin with one hand and looked at Bear thoughtfully. I don't want to be scolded by the old man for doing too much, so, as long as you surrender to me crying, then how about I will spare your life. Smelly boy. Base. Base. When Bear heard this, he was furious. On his forehead, the blue veins burst, and his feet used in vain, like a meteor to Gojo Satoru. And Gojo Satoru, who had just been taught by Yaga Masamiki in the morning, obviously has a memory. Unlimited power burst into his body in an instant. Furiously rushing towards the distance. He doesn't want to be taught love by Yaga Masamiki anymore. Quote. Zenin Ryuichi glanced at Sha Yuji, who didn't know where he flew. I looked at Gojo Satoru, who had turned into a streamer and disappeared on the edge of the horizon. Then he lowered his head and glanced at the girl who had fallen into a coma. I always feel like I have been pitted. By the way, these two guys really didn't mean it. A few black threads rose on Zenin Ryuichi's head. He hugged the girl up. There is no way, although he is powerful, but he does not have any means to heal. But when full hand is unlocked, control the soul with one hand. Knead the flesh with one hand. Advertisement. He can easily repair the damage from the soul or the body. And, Ryuichi suddenly thought of a name. Real people. That little cutie who made him hate his teeth in the comics in his previous life, his jujutsu, does not change. Once he meets full hand, I don't know what it will be like. Real people are very cute, the only drawback is that they are alive. Thinking of this, the corner of Ryuichi's mouth lit up with a playful smile. Immediately he picked up the girl beside him and walked towards the corner. It's just that between his eyes in a daze, he flicked across the tall building again, as if he had seen something interesting. Don't let me get bored, I finally came out to perform a task. Please. After this time, I will go back to the countryside to farm and never come back to Tokyo again. And also the Q organization will be launched. The ball, you keep it away from me. Please. Kokwin's voice almost collapsed, and his horizontal kick was surrounded by countless cursed spirits that looked like maggots. The cursed spirit said with a voice like an old lady pinching his throat. Come and kiss. As he spoke, he continued to use his disgusting head towards Kokwinen. Sha Yuji, who seemed to be watching a play, with a mobile phone in one hand, looked at something as if bored. Regarding Kokwin's cry for mercy, there was not the slightest wave on his face. What do you mean by the name of the strongest person in your organization? Hearing Sha Yuji's words, Kokun seemed to see a life-saving straw, and his eyes suddenly lit up. Bear. It's Bear. He is the most powerful existence in our organization. He is now looking for trouble with your partner. Bear is really strong. If you rush now, you should. Before Kokun finished speaking, it was as if something was blocking his throat. Make him unable to say a word. His pupils shrank suddenly, and the cold sweat from his whole body kept oozing out. His eyes gradually lost focus. Because he saw it. Sha Yuji reached into the phone in front of him. In one photo, Bear was lying on the ground as if he had collapsed, and beside him, it was Gojo Satoru with a weird face posing in the shape of a scissor hand, as if taking a picture with some clown. What a poor guy. Sha Yu put the phone back into his pocket, and didn't even look at the guy again. Advertisement. Seeking flowers. Stepping on the back of cursed spirit, slowly drifting away. Pouch. Pouch. The sound of exhausting gas sounded in Kokwin's ears, and his eyes had been completely swallowed by despair. Didn't it mean that the students of Jujutsu Academy don't kill people? Why? Why? Before Kokwin screamed desperately, the endless darkness had drowned everything about him. Hoo. A breeze blew over Sha Yuji's hair. Let his black hair keep swaying in the air. What's rare in Sha Yuji's expression is not the smiley expression in the past. It was covered by a layer of haze. He firmly grasped a black stone in his hand. As long as a strong person with superior strength starts to constantly want to breathe the desire to become stronger, as long as that desire can break through all the shackles, it can call that from the deep hell. His eyes were gloomy and looked at the stone. Today is Sha Yuji's first murder. That was the evil that was erased by people in the long river of history, and that was the dust that was buried by people on the sand sea of time. Waves of curse power continued to feed back to Sha Yuji. The stone was pitch black, exuding a different color, and the darkness was pure and clean. But regardless of the mobile phone curse or jujutsu, a huge amount of curse power will burst upon death, and this power will give birth to fear that can subvert everything. That was the cursed tool that suddenly appeared in front of Sha Yuji's infinite desire to become stronger. And Sha Yuji, who has always followed these regulations very well, has never broken it. Therefore, for such people, the Jujutsu world has always used immortal imprisonment to avoid higher curse. Can you really transfer the spell's power? There is an unspeakable mystery. Super cursed tool. Only the existence that can change the fate of this world can derive or refine the strongest tool, Earth. The souvenir of endless demons. Jujutsu teacher and curse teacher are essentially people with mantra power, the only difference is the standpoint. In the legend. But all this has changed since he picked up this stone. Never killed any curse division. Chapter 241. Advertisement. Ryuichi's Nidanechichi is the strongest swordsman born in 1,000 years, Miyamoto Musashi's obsession to kill the cursed spirit to protect mankind even after his death. And the stone in Sha Yuji's hand is Let people sink into endless desires, and constantly gain all the power in this world during the killing. Killing stone. Kill all beings and slaughter everything. Only killing is also possible. Sha Yu looked at the stone in his hand that was constantly emitting a fascinating light, and a very complicated expression flashed in his eyes. He wants to be strong. He wants enough power to stand beside Gojo Satoru and Zenin Ryuichi. He also wants to be the strongest, like Gojo Satoru said. He is Sha Yuji, the youngest super jujutsu teacher and the only cursed spirit operation user. He should have been qualified to stand on the top of the mountains. But all because of the appearance of Ryuichi. Under the stimulus of Ryuichi, Gojo Satoru, who has always been careless, began to grow rapidly. The only gap between Sha Yuji and this era began to be infinitely magnified. Even if he didn't say it, his heart was extremely anxious. The appearance of the killing stone was an accident, but it was also an opportunity. It can convert all curse one produced by killing creatures into pure curse power and absorb it into one's own body. With this power, even if you kill Master Curse and Master Jujutsu, you don't need to worry about their curse power to create powerful curse. General dust removal is to sweep the floor with a broom, and more dust and smoke will fall when the dust is flying. And everything removed by the killing stone is as if it is directly absorbed by a vacuum cleaner, and the dust can be converted into electricity. For a long time, Sha Yuji didn't have the right time to use this kind of power, and until today, facing Kokwon of Q Curse, he showed the power of the killing stone for the first time. The feeling was very strange. He just ordered Cursed Spirit to remove Kokwon, and did not control the killing stone, but Kokwon's curse power went into his body without a trace and accumulated. It was originally a bunch of scum. Even if all of them are killed, it doesn't matter. Sha Yuji put away the killing stone again. Muttered to himself in a low tone. In this case, you can catch up with him. Gojo. Zenin Ryuichi hugged the sleeping girl and walked to the coffee shop where he and Gojo Satoru would occasionally come out to meet up. A faint curse on his body was constantly flashing. Advertisement. That is the signal left to Gojo and Sha Yu. It looks like only 15 or 16, but unfortunately, it will become that guy's body. The thought that this young and beautiful girl in her arms will merge with an old guy who has lived for hundreds of years, Ryuichi feels disgust in her heart. Suddenly the girl in his arms shook her eyelashes slightly. Then a pair of Shui Lingling's big eyes opened directly. Ryuichi's almost perfect appearance was reflected in the pair of innocent eyes. So handsome. The girl gave a tender cry, and the palm that had been raised high because of her instinctive reaction, she took it back and covered her mouth. She couldn't believe that there was such a handsome man in this world. My face is instantly red like an apple. Oh, if you wake up, let's go by yourself. Ryuichi saw the girl wake up, and immediately let go of her palm. For Ryuichi, holding the girl is too troublesome, especially when facing all kinds of eyesight. It is more troublesome than removing cursed spirit. Seeing the girl waking up, he naturally wouldn't be holding the girl. The palm of his hand slammed open. What? Under the girl's incredible eyes, she felt her body sink. Base. Just when she was about to scream, a black figure flashed in an instant, and caught the girl who was about to fall to the ground. Be gentle with girls, otherwise you won't find a wife. Gojo Satoru held the girl in his arms and looked at Ryuichi like a veteran in love, completely ignoring Ryuichi's eyes. However, he didn't wait for a few seconds to be proud. I felt a gust of fragrant wind blowing. Click. The girl actually slapped Gojo Satoru's face with 2 slaps. Although in terms of Gojo Satoru's physical fitness, such a girl will not get hurt no matter how many hits he hits. But for Gojo, who has been enjoying the girl screaming at him. Suddenly there was a few stunned. Pervert, how can I touch my concubine at will? Advertisement. The humble people also want to kill the concubine, but they once knew the greatness of the concubine. The concubine body is, Tien Riko. It is the existence of eternal life. Base. While she was speaking, the girl jumped back and forth one by one. One finger pointed to Gojo Satoru and yelled at Gojo loudly. Although the voice was loud, there was indeed a bit of fear hidden deep in her eyes. No, when Ryuichi hugged you just now, you didn't react like this. Gojo Satoru's point seems to be different from others forever. What he cares about for the first time is this kind of problem. Sha Yuji, who was slowly falling from the sky, saw this scene. Smiled and waved to the girl, and said in a kind tone. Sister Lizzie, don't be nervous and calm down. Obviously, we are not a group of you who attacked together before. Lie. He looks like a liar, and his bangs are strange. Single quote. Lizzie didn't give Sha Yuji the slightest bit of face and spit out sharp words. What? The smile on Sha Yuji's face suddenly stiffened. Next second, he and Gojo Satoru grabbed Riko's arms and thighs respectively, and pulled them frantically towards the left and right ends. No, you dare to treat your concubine like this, you are disrespectful. Riko yelled loudly. While looking for help, he looked at Ryuichi not far away. If you can give me 100,000 yen, I can help you get it down. Ryuichi stretched out his fingers and made a toll gesture. Who would spend 100,000 yuan for this kind of thing? B***********D. Ryuichi, who heard this, also had a green vein on his forehead. Base. He suddenly appeared next to Riko. Said seriously to Gojo Satoru and Sha Yuji. Otherwise, let's just cut her down. I have a way to make her immortal, put it in the suitcase, and take it with you tomorrow. Ryuichi's tone was very kind, as if he was discussing with the two of them where he would go to play tomorrow. There was a smile on the corner of his mouth. This look fell in Riko's eyes, not knowing how many times more handsome than Fuzang's stars. Please be sure not to say such things in such a nice and kind tone. There were silent tears on Riko's face. Chapter 242. Advertisement. Please do not. A slightly flustered voice sounded. Not far away, I saw a woman riding on a calf like a calf, walking towards the three of them staggeringly, with worry on her face. It was not until she saw Riko who was alive and kicking, that she was relieved of her breath. Miss, they really belong to our side. The female woman quickly explained to Riko. Seeing outsiders visiting, Gojo and Sha Yu stopped messing around and put Riko back on the ground. Sorry, everyone. My name is Kuroi Misato, and I am the person in charge of taking care of Riko. I apologize to you again for the young lady's behavior. After that, she jumped off the monster's back and bowed gently to the three of Ryuichi. It makes Gojo Satoru and Sha Yuji too feel a bit embarrassed. But Ryuichi didn't feel much. Bowing, kowtow and so on are simply too common for a Fuzang person. Although he doesn't like this tedious etiquette very much, he still can't control others. What are you riding? Riko is not brave, or brainless, just breaking free from the clutches of Gojo Satoru and Sha Yuji. She looks at the monster next to Kuroi Mise 23 with enthusiasm. Heijing Miri climbed onto the bullhead monster again, and said in a rather cute tone. This is the technique of Mr. Lu Heitu. Could you please change the name? Sha Yuji said all over. Is it so powerful? Can you control cursed spirit's art? Isn't cursed spirit the biggest enemy in the Jujutsu world? Riko looked at Sha Yuji very curiously, with a bit of immaturity in his words. A rookie who knows little about Jujutsu in the world of drinks. A somewhat helpless explanation appeared on Sha Yuji's face. Advertisement. My Jujutsu is called Cursed Spirit Exercises. As the name implies, it is Jujutsu that can control cursed spirit. Looking at the enthusiastic Riko, Gojo Satoru said with an unhappy expression. I thought this guy would be panicked because of being merged, but he became sentimental. I didn't expect it to be like this. Simply a sumo woman. Obviously, Gojo is still very dissatisfied with Riko's slap in the face of seeing Ryuichi blushing. After all, Gojo Satoru always thinks that his looks are more popular than Ryuichi. This Jujutsu is amazing. If you can subdue all the cursed spirit, then there will be no war. Riko ignored Gojo Satoru's words, but looked at Sha Yuji with excitement. She once heard people say that cursed spirit cannot be completely eliminated, because as long as there is a human existence in the world, then the curse power will continuously flow out of the negative human emotions. Even if the cursed spirit is temporarily removed from the chaos, it will be born again in this world after a while. This is the cursed spirit, the unquenchable human haze. But if all the cursed spirit can be subdued by the Bangs monster who can control the cursed spirit, humans will die a lot less. That's what Riko thinks. What a clever person Sha Yuji is. As soon as he heard Lizzie's words, he knew what the other party meant. There was a wry smile at the corner of his mouth, and he reluctantly shrugged his shoulders and said. It's not that easy, not to mention how many powerful and unknown guys exist in this world, but the number of cursed spirits that have risen to the level of the world is beyond me. Sha Yuji's limit is a terrible number enough to control thousands of cursed spirits. In the face of ordinary opponents, this amount of cursed spirit can almost crush everything. But, when facing the whole world, the number of thousands is so small. A crazy pioneer like cursed spirit who wants to use cursed spirit manipulation to control the world will only speak out for a little girl who has this kind of uncharacteristics. But, Sha Yuji's thoughts turned, and his eyes slowly fell on Zenin Ryuichi, who was not sure what he was thinking about. If it were him, he should be able to do it. At this moment, he thought of that day in the alley, the overwhelming cursed spirit, as if bowing down to a god, bowing to Ryuichi. The power that can surpass all cursed spirits is the real demon. Advertisement. All right. Riko pursed her mouth somewhat disappointingly, then looked at Gojo Satoru with an uncomfortable face, and a nasty smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. Hey, that silver-haired boy, respect your concubine, I am Lord Tianyuan. Lord Tianyuan is me. Listen to me. Although there are ignorant guys who confuse assimilation and death, but I still want to tell you once again, after assimilation, the concubine will become Master Tianyuan, and Master Tianyuan will also become an incarnation concubine body. Concubine's mind, soul. After assimilation, it will also survive in the world. While talking, children who show off toys to their friends are generally proud. You are still a student. You always feel like someone inexplicably like this way of speaking. If that's the case, you can't make friends in school. Ryuichi looked at Riko with a slightly ridiculous smile, and in addition to his voice, he gave Gojo Satoru a backstab. Sha Yuji also secretly smiled. But this kind of person who has no friends will not have any psychological burden when sending her on the road. Gojo Satoru has been accustomed to Ryuichi's backstab, but he didn't react too much, as if he hadn't heard it, and teased himself a few words. When Riko heard Ryuichi's words, she raised her head to look at the boy who was holding her in the first place, and a red glow rose on her face again. No way. When I was in school, it was no different from a normal person. Riko's tone when speaking to Ryuichi was unconsciously gentle. But the moment she saw Gojo Satoru walking on her and Ryuichi with ambiguous eyes, his face became flushed like a red apple, and his eyes turned into star eyes, not knowing what he was thinking. Tisk, Ryuichi, it looks like you are liked by Master Tianyuan. Gojo Satoru appeared by Ryuichi's side unkindly and bumped him lightly with his shoulder. Ryuichi glanced at Gojo Satoru, whose face was full of evil taste. However, if the mobile phone school, shouldn't you go to school now? Ryuichi looked at Riko unhurriedly and couldn't help rubbing his chin with his palm. What? Black well, what time is it, morning or afternoon? Damn, what am I missing? Chapter 243. Advertisement. So, that girl has to go to school. According to me, just get her up. Or as Ryuichi said, cut her directly into two pieces and put it in a suitcase, and bring it to Master Tianyuan. Gojo Satoru was holding his cell phone and wrangling with Yaga Masamiki on the other end of the phone with an improper look. And Yaga Masamiki obviously knew what his student was like, but he didn't care about what he said. Instead, she seriously confessed. According to what she said, we have to meet all the requirements of Tien Riko. This is part of the agreement. It's obviously safer to return to the academy as soon as possible. Sue, what you said is exactly what I think, but this is an order from Master Tianyuan, so please try to satisfy her. After all, she can't be herself for too long. Yaga Masamiki's voice suddenly became a little low. It's really lenient to her. After Gojo Satoru hung up the phone, he sat on the bench with a helpless expression. Ryuichi, who seemed to have fallen asleep in a chair, let out a complaint. Obviously it is safe to bring people back to the academy, but now they have to do such a troublesome thing. But what surprised him is that Ryuichi, who has always been afraid of trouble and lazy, didn't say anything. Don't say that, go. In fact, think about it carefully, even if the child says nothing more casually, after she really becomes Lord Tianyuan, she will never see her relatives, friends, and most important people again. Sha Yuji looked at Riko who was whispering to his friend in the classroom with a bit of sentimentality. Compared to Gojo Satoru, he is more emotional and more responsible. Therefore, when facing the strong smile of Riko, he could feel the sorrow in the other party's heart even more. Let her like it, after all this is our task. After Gojo Satoru said this, he didn't say much. Instead, he leaned his head on the bench like Ryuichi, squinted his eyes slightly, and looked at the endless firmament in the sky. Sha Yu, Gojo, do you think that a teenage girl in season is really willing to be the carrier of an old man? Zenin Ryuichi opened his eyes slowly, and the endless sky was reflected in the pair of moon-white pupils. Sha Yuji and Gojo Satoru fell silent for a while when they heard this. Even if I don't know what kind of person Tien Riko is, no matter who it is, he would not want to be the carrier of another existence, even if that existence represents the highest right in this world. For Jujutsu World. After a long while, Sha Yuji squeezed these 5 words out of her mouth. Ryuichi smiled softly when he heard this. Advertisement. The corner of his mouth brought out an extremely disdainful arc. For the Jujutsu World, what a high-sounding word. Ryuichi, I always wanted to ask you a question. What kind of existence do you think Jujutsu Master is like? Sha Yuji stared at Ryuichi's eyes, as if wanting to see something in the all-encompassing pair of eyes. Master Jujutsu. Ryuichi repeated Sha Yuji's question again. Then said 1. I never thought of myself as a Jujutsu teacher, I was just an ordinary person who wanted to live according to his own ideas. I laugh when I am happy, and wipe out the source of all troubles when I am angry. I don't have any great principles like Jujutsu Master, I just want to be myself. I am the only one who can be myself. When Sha Yuji heard this, there was a bit of bitterness in her eyes. Zenin Ryuichi is different from anyone. Even if he is as powerful as Gojo Satoru, he is far from being as free as him. He is the freest person in the entire Jujutsu world. He doesn't have the great vision of the Jujutsu teacher, but only the theory like his house of everything. In a sense, Ryuichi is indeed not a Jujutsu teacher. Sha Yuji turned his gaze to Gojo Satoru who was thinking about this question again and asked. So, what about you, Gojo, what do you think Jujutsu Master is like? Me. Gojo Satoru reached out a finger and nodded himself, then said. Yeah, I wanted to ask you a long time ago. You often forget to set up your tent, and you sneer at the many rules in the Jujutsu world. So I want to ask you, Gojo Satoru, what do you think of Jujutsu Master? For a group of weak guys, I have to worry about it. It's really tiring. Gojo Satoru said rather impatiently, as if he was still a little bit upset about being taught by Yaga Masamiki in the morning. Enlightenment, listen up, survival of the weak is the status quo of this society. The so-called supporting the weak and suppressing the strong is exactly that. In my eyes, Jujutsu exists to protect non-warlocks. Sha Yuji said loudly. Advertisement. Oh. Hearing Sha Yuji's slightly instructive tone, Gojo Satoru slowly straightened up, put a hand on his chin, and his sunglasses slipped off. The pair of azure blue eyes stared at his old friend in front of him. Diaresis, you are righteous. And Lao Su, the most annoying to get is righteousness. You said so vigorously. What kind of responsibility, protection, but have you ever thought about imposing reasons and responsibilities on Jujutsu? You were considering it from the standpoint of the strong. I keep talking about helping the weak and suppressing the strong. After all, haven't you considered it from your own standpoint? The expression on Sha Yuji's face suddenly changed when he heard this. The smiley expression in the past quickly thinned his face, one eye was opened in vain, and with a bit of unspeakable irritation, a trace of broken hair fell before his eyebrows. The killing stone swayed in his heart. His finger points to the outer door of the campus. Go out and talk. Woo. Buzzing. Is there a shadow of a huge cursed spirit appearing behind him, countless evil and strange eyes staring at Gojo? Why, Lee Dezhao, are you afraid of being alone? Go by yourself. Gojo Satoru held his sunglasses with one hand, and everything in his body seemed to have infinite overlapping levels. And Ryuichi disappeared without a trace as early as the moment the two quarreled. He walked in the quiet campus and said with a bit of complaint. Really, this kind of scene of arguing for ambition is really inappropriate for you, and it's very noisy. He walked listlessly, looking for a quiet corner feather. Mr. Ryuichi. Suddenly a crisp female voice stopped Ryuichi's name. Ryuichi looked back, and Kuroi Misato rushed towards him in a trot. Mr. Ryuichi, Mr. Gojo and Mr. Natsumi don't know where they went, so I can only tell you some things. Kuroi Misato looked at Ryuichi out of breath, with an indescribable mood in her tone. Chapter 244. Advertisement. What's the matter, Miss Kuroi? Ryuichi looked at the panting woman in front of him with a puzzled face. I'm really sorry, Miss Riko, she has no bad thoughts. Kuroi Misato bowed directly at Ryuichi, 180 degrees, with an indescribable sadness on her face. Seeing the woman in front of him behaved like this, Ryuichi was still expressionless, not comforting like an ordinary man. On the contrary, some felt that this woman was a little nervous. Could it be that she really thought she would do something to a little girl? But the next moment, what Kuroi Misato said made Ryuichi even more speechless. Mr. Ryuichi, although I don't have much contact with the Jujutsu world, I have heard of your legend. Therefore, we know that no rules can hold you back. So please don't be angry with you. If you really want to get angry, come at me. After all, Kuroi Misato spread her hands suddenly, as if blocking Ryuichi's body, her eyes closed tightly, her eyelids trembled slightly, and she was very panicked and scared. But even so, she didn't even want to take a step back. As the person in charge of astroplasm, Kuroi Misato almost watched Tien Riko grow up, and his feelings for her are even more complicated. On the one hand, that girl should have the supreme glory as the carrier of Lord Tianyuan's future, and Kuroi Misato, who took care of her, should not feel the slightest sorrow for a long time, but should feel honored instead. But, on the other hand, as a flesh and blood human being, Kuroi Misato has a mother-daughter affection for a young girl she has seen since she was a child. Under this kind of complicated feelings, Kuroi Misato is very sensitive to anyone who might hurt Riko back. She is like an old hen, trying her best to protect her cub until the moment the cub enters the oven. But today, he saw an existence that could not be resisted anyway. The legendary Jujutsu division, a monster who crushed the gloom of an era by one person, almost overthrew the Jujutsu Association. The well-deserved invincible of this era, even a dazzling star like Gojo Satoru, is so bleak in front of him. Cruelty, brutality, and unrestrained killing, these are the labels that Jujutsu World puts on Ryuichi. Kuroi Misato couldn't imagine. If Ryuichi was really concerned about Riko's powerless behavior just now, would Master Tianyuan's command really restrain this sky-like man? Kuroi didn't dare to gamble and couldn't gamble, so she kept watching Ryuichi's behavior secretly, until Ryuichi got up. She couldn't bear the inner suffering, she rushed out and stopped in front of Ryuichi. Looking at the woman in front of him who seemed to be dying, Ryuichi couldn't help but feel a little funny. Under Feng Hu Men, Kuroi Miri's mind was almost invisible. Advertisement. I don't have to worry about a girl yet. After all, Ryuichi didn't even look at the stiff beauty, but went straight to the pavilion on the side. The black well, which seemed to be salvaged from the Dead Sea, breathed a sigh of relief. There is no need for a strong person of this level to fool himself. Then he hurried to get to the edge of the pavilion. Looking at the goblet that appeared out of nowhere on the table, and the precious red wine, he poured half a glass for Ryuichi very well. Then said, the blood-like wine is constantly rippling in the cup, as if it has set off ripples in the world. Your name is Heijing, right? Yes, Mr. Ryuichi. Kuroi Misato still looked a bit restrained, with her two hands clasped tightly on the side of her trousers, standing straight like a schoolboy. More than nervous, I'm not a cannibal monster. I'm just an ordinary boss. Hearing Ryuichi's words, Kuroi couldn't help but think of the legend about Ryuichi. Are the requirements for being an ordinary boss now so high? Crushing a generation and killing Jujutsu's chairman is an ordinary boss. What am I, a crawler on the ground? Of course, Kuroi Miri didn't dare to say these words, so he could only respond. Mr. Ryuichi joked, your house of everything is now almost equivalent to the top existence in the Jujutsu world. This sentence is not a compliment. However, Ryuichi obviously has no nature and she is more upright on this topic. Heijing's figure was reflected in the moon-white eyes, and the corners of his mouth were slightly pursed, as if he had penetrated Heijing's body and mind. Do you think she is your family? Ryuichi said softly. Riko Kuroi's face was stiff, and her eyes appeared a little dazed. She herself had not only asked this question how many times, but until now, she had never had a real answer. Advertisement. I really think of Riko as a family member. What is it that she has always wanted? I turned out to be nothing more than an intermediary based on the scriptures. Ryuichi's voice seemed to have a certain magical power, causing Kuroi to fall into a certain state of being unable to extricate himself from it. She bit her lips tightly, and a trace of redness flowed from the edge of her lips, and she didn't seem to notice it. Hee, if she is your family, are you really willing to make her a world? Ryuichi's voice sounded faintly in her ears. At some point, his figure appeared beside Kuroi, and he drank the mellow glass of wine in his hand. Shocking. His figure was constantly flashing in the void, leaving only the black well, who had fallen into his own memories, standing alone. Zenin Ryuichi stopped at some corner of the academy. Quietly reclusive, his eyes drifted slowly across the surrounding gardens, as if he was looking for something. If you like to hide in the dark, then never come out. From the beginning to the present, are you annoying? Miscellaneous. Ryuichi's voice was as cold as the immortal ice, as if it had brought everything around him back to the Cambrian era where everything was frozen in an instant. Gululu. Gululu. With a soft voice from Ryuichi. A large number of black bloodstains continued to emerge on the ground, and the blood carried a nauseating stench. It's like being thrown away in a corpse in a stinking ditch. Gululu. The blood began to slowly turn into a human form on the ground. In less than a moment, a Catholic-like man dressed in white appeared in front of Ryuichi. His eyes were hollow and looking at Ryuichi enthusiastically, as if a fanatic fan saw his idol. Chapter 245. Advertisement. There was a frenzy that seemed to be able to ignite everything in the Byakusan's eyes. This crazy temperament. Ryuichi has only been seen on TV in his previous life. That is a kind of madness for the sake of faith, that is a kind of madness that can ecstatically knock one's heirs to death for their own desires, which is called sacrifice. This believer in white gave Ryuichi exactly this kind of madness that disgusted him. Zenin Ryuichi. I found you. I found you. You are the Lord's gift. Are the Lord's sacrifice. Hey, come on. Join the glorious evolution. The believer had a frantic smile, and a trace of black blood kept flowing out of his mouth. Noisy. The blood that fell on the ground was extremely corrosive, corroding the ground into numerous holes of various sizes. Look at this scene in front of you. Ryuichi frowned slightly. He didn't think this strange guy was so tricky, or he felt a little disgusting. When you tap your toes. Countless mysterious auras slowly surging around him. Feng Hu Chi men unfolded quietly. Although I don't know what you are yelling, but you are too sick, so please leave my sight. Otherwise, I promise, you will be born in this world after meeting. Zenin Ryuichi's eyes had a very obvious hatred. His iconic smile at the corner of his mouth also constricted secretly. Obviously, he couldn't bear the disgusting thing that appeared in front of him. Haha, bad habits, how can you be sick? This is the Lord's gift. The white-clothed man raised a hand to himself. Gulululu. Countless black blood bubbles were on his palm, pouring out like boiling water. The black blood is like oil stains in the sewer, with a stench that is unbearable for ordinary people, and it is constantly floating in the air. Zenin Ryuichi. The one who killed you is a follower of the kingdom of God, Kamen. Base. Kamen let out a scream, like a cheetah, and killed Ryuichi, who looked disgusted. Without taking a step, the black blood splashing from his body would corrode pits of different sizes on the ground. Advertisement. Just when he was about to touch that Zenin Ryuichi. An invisible force instantly surged from all directions, and instantly imprisoned him in the air. The power he enshrined as the grace of God, it was actually difficult to break away from that bondage. Dry words space ban. Ryuichi pinched the tactics with one hand, looking at Kamen who was imprisoned in that space, the disgust on his face was even more expressive. Sorry, although I am still very interested in your state religion, but you are so disgusting. Rumble. As Ryuichi's voice fell, countless spaces instantly rioted. In the imprisoned space, Kamen's body was instantly torn apart by the turbulence of the space. The body exploded into a black blood mist. Not a jujutsu teacher, but a bit like that guy. Ryuichi looked at the endless blood mist, and suddenly thought of the poor guy who had been deceived by a lie. The hero who claims to be a human, with countless souls who wants to drag Ryuichi into hell, humanity. Avid believer, the new power besides the curse power is much more fun than I imagined. Ryuichi murmured in a low voice, his eyes were indeed inadvertently looking at a corner of the campus. It was as if the countless time and space had been cut off and saw the dark figure. Try to make an appointment with me. Don't make me feel bored. He seemed to be talking to himself, and he seemed to be whispering in whose ear. Comma. Hee. Don't worry, I will bore you this way. The next game has just begun. God sat on the seat, with a deep smile at the corner of his mouth, and he looked at the void somewhere. It was as if he had seen that white-clothed, black-haired, deity-like young man. It is really unreasonable to let such a low-level trash meet you, but there is no way, I have to wait, you don't have to slap your opponent first. God's voice was indescribably crazy, and a trace of ruddy flashed across his face. A thick needle tube was connected to his arm, and the other end of the needle tube was connected to the cursed fetus the size of a hill. A steady stream of dark blood poured into his body. Advertisement. Seeking flowers. The energy that is different from the cursed power is becoming more and more tyrannical. Ooh. In the cursed fetus, the sleeping cursed spirit groaned unconsciously, as if feeling some kind of pain. The cursed blood that ordinary people can hardly resist, even a trace of blood, he is like a blood pump, hitting into his body. Stellar body. Tianyuan, old guy, I didn't expect that time flies so fast, it's another 500 years. Have you not found your true self yet? It's really sad. The priest's tone was deeply disdainful. A star pulp appeared in front of him, an image of Rico in the sky. No progress at all, only evolution can change everything, you are still as stupid as you were 500 years ago. Hey, forget it, let me solve the trouble. After all, I used to be Tianyuan, Earth. According to legend, the body abandoned by Master Tianyuan of the previous generation is the remains of a believer. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Even Tianyuan, who had always respected his body, had unexpectedly ordered not to pursue this matter. Let me tell you, today I saw a handsome guy. Really super handsome. The girl's eyes seemed to have countless little stars, and the corners of her mouth had a smile like a nympho. Tian Yuan's body would be taken away by special personnel for testing, and finally cremated, which has always been the case for thousands of years. That appearance is almost a kill to these fusang stars, especially the pair of eyes, my god. The moon white is just like an angel. The weirdness of the existence of this makes the heart of the Jujutsu community always have a knot. Single quote. And just at the moment when everyone is about to forget all of this. One of God's eyes had a deep meaning that was indescribable. What's even more bizarre is, the girl with a few freckles on her face said to Tien Rico with excitement. This long sigh seemed to span a century. Humanity, cursed spirit, a new era is coming. Tianyuan, your mistake, I will pay for you. The existence that should have passed away long ago is about to start a new chapter in this world. And only the body of the believer disappeared bizarrely after it faded away. Chapter 246. Advertisement. Rico listened to her companion's description, and Ryuichi's stern face appeared directly in her mind. The pair of moon-white eyes could shine into her heart like a beacon in the dark night. Girly feelings are always poetry, and Lizzie is no exception. Looking at the girl's nympho look again, the smile on her face can't help but expand a bit. Not only did I meet that handsome guy, I also touched him. Thinking of this, a hint of pink appeared on her face. My hands didn't feel like kneading the corners of clothes. I was also a little surprised. I was obviously not the person who would be a nympho, but every time I think of Ryuichi, I always feel that the man gives me an unspeakable sense of security. It's as if standing behind him, I'm just the day in the sky. But thinking about the purpose of Ryuichi and their trip, their eyes darkened. The restless heart gradually calmed down. Kang dang. The door of the chapel was suddenly opened rudely. Day. An anxious voice came from outside the gate. Everyone's eyes were attracted by this sound, making the originally noisy chapel instantly quiet. What? Lizzie heard this familiar voice and immediately knew who the person was. Putting his hands on his chest, praying silently, while slowly moving his eyes to the gate of the chapel. Click. Rico suddenly felt that something in her heart was broken. Is it my one of the few shame minds? Wow, are you a high school student? So tall. Hey, is it a boyfriend? Kind of handsome. What's the situation? Rico. Boyfriend. No wonder I didn't discuss with us just now, I already have such a handsome boyfriend. Rico obviously didn't know why Gojo Satoru suddenly looked for her at this time, so she waved her hand and explained to the classmates around her. Trying to stick the broken shame back. No, it's my cousin. Cousin. Rico saw that they did not accept their own explanations, whether they were angry or ashamed, their entire faces were covered in red. Her appearance made other people's guesses even more conclusive. It's nice to be young. When Gojo Satoru saw the situation in the house, he was no longer anxious. Instead, he took off his sunglasses leisurely and radiated his charm unscrupulously. Wow, the little brother took off his sunglasses. Super handsome. Advertisement. Ah, I can't do it anymore. Seeing the situation in front of him, Rico felt so angry and funny, she couldn't help shouting at Gojo Satoru, hey. Don't be too smug. Quiet. Everyone is quiet. What a decent way you are. At this time, the teacher who had no sense of existence clapped his hands to calm everyone down. Riko suddenly felt that the teacher was really her own savior, otherwise she might really have died here in the original place. However, the teacher's state is a bit wrong. Teacher, you obviously care too much. The female teacher wiped the cold sweat from her face, her mouth floating with a trace of disdain. How can my old mother's makeup skills be comparable to those of you little kids? It turned out that when everyone's eyes were drawn away by Gojo Satoru, she took out her own dust-covered cosmetics for a long time to make up. Riko also noticed this and covered her face with her right hand. She felt that she really had no face to continue staying in school. That's not okay. Even if you are a relative, you can't just walk in. Ah, sorry, because the situation is urgent, so. Gojo Satoru finally remembered his mission and brought back his sunglasses. This is my phone number. Before Gojo Satoru could explain, the teacher handed out the note with his mobile phone number. You are against the regulations by doing so. As a teacher, you like Shaoshanru. I didn't expect you to be such a person. Gojo Satoru obviously did not expect that these young girls would be so enthusiastic, so they ran directly to Riko and took her out of the chapel. Master Curse has already been killed. I suggest that you return to Jujutsu College immediately to ensure your safety. You don't want your friends to be hurt, do you? When Riko heard this, she did not refute, and was quietly carried by Gojo Satoru, seeming to agree to his suggestion. At the same time, Xiaoyu is facing off with two cursed teachers in the teaching building. Cuckoo. Puff puff puff. At this time, many small monsters slowly appeared on the ceiling of the corridor and the surrounding walls. Shikigami. Xiaoyu looked at these little things without much alert in her heart. After all, these things can be wiped out for him by raising his hand. It is worth noting that the four wearing the box at the back. Does cursed spirit operate? The old man who summoned the Shikigami saw through the jujutsu that Xiaoyu used at a glance, and had already figured out a countermeasure in his heart. Longevity people are really knowledgeable. Although Xiaoyu was complimenting her, her body was gradually flexing, pretending to be defensive. Advertisement. Stop talking nonsense with him. Come on. As soon as the voice fell, the box man behind Xiaoyu attacked first. Four people formed a V-shape to double-team Xiaoyu. Shame. The old man cursed inwardly. But this is the end of the matter, and it must be dealt with immediately. The little monsters that originally appeared in the corridor all ejected. The old man did not expect these things to cause substantial harm to Xiaoyu. As long as it can be dragged for a while, he himself took advantage of this time to rush towards Xiaoyu instantly. Since it belongs to the jujutsu of the manipulation category, the melee level must not be good. Be sure to shorten the combat distance and kill him in the shortest time. Xiaoyu was not surprised to see the two men's offensive, and she jumped towards the wall with an indifferent expression. Boom. The originally regular ceiling broke instantly. A thick worm-shaped cursed spirit fell from the sky, swallowing all the little monsters instantly. This sudden cursed spirit scared the old man directly. The corridor of the teaching building itself is not narrow, but the body of this cursed spirit can actually block the corridor by nearly 2/3. It's such a bug to use it to fight here. The box man saw this situation not only slowed down his original sprint speed, but his pupils couldn't help but shrank, and the goosebumps immediately covered his whole body. All the organs are sending a message to him. This cursed spirit will kill him. However, he did not give up the kill, but separated another clone. Prepare to let it escape the battle first, and use these four bodies to continue fighting. It's a bit late to escape now, isn't it? With the voice of Xiaoyu fell. The huge worm-shaped cursed spirit rushed towards the box man with a movement speed that did not match his size. Roar. Cursed spirit opened its mouth wide, all its sharp teeth were exposed to the air, trying to punch all the boxers in. Good chance. The old man looked at the cursed spirit who was led away by the box man. Now is a good opportunity to kill Xiaoyu. Rub. With both feet on the ground, the whole body flew in front of Xiaoyu like a cheetah. Die. Chapter 247. Advertisement. Just when the old man was about to succeed. Yep. Too helpful. For some reason, he suddenly saw his childhood playmate. An Akita dog named Taisuke. Haha. Long time no see. The old man's thoughts returned to his high school days. At that time, he was alone, and all the love of his parents was given to his younger brother, but he treated him like a passerby. The classmates around him also loathe Curse because he can see him and think he is a lunatic. That time can be said to be the darkest and most helpless time in his life. Every day after school, I would rather squat on the side of the street in a daze than go back to the home where he can't feel the slightest warmth. Until Taisuke appeared. Whenever he felt lonely and helpless, only Teizu accompanied him. It can be said that Taisuke is his relative. Seeing Teizu again, he finally couldn't suppress the emotion in his heart, so he squatted down and looked at it silently. Tears didn't feel like they started to roll in the eyes. At this time, he seemed to have forgotten his identity and mission. I just want to put down everything and sit down with Taisuke 23 and speak well. Wow, Taisuke seemed to know what he was thinking. Standing up, shaking the hair on his body, his eyes were soft, he shook his head and motioned him to follow him. The old man didn't hesitate, put his hands on his knees, stood up, and wiped his eyes subconsciously. Yep, he found that his fists were strong and powerful, and his skin was plump, completely opposite to his previous body. To help. Wait for me. But instead of stopping to think more, he raised his leg and ran forward. He wanted to make peace with Tezu. He was not going to let Tezu leave himself this time. Back to reality. It turned out that Xiaoyu locked him up with a backhand grab before the old man's fist was thrown out. A right uppercut directly twisted his neck, followed by 2 straight punches, directly knocking the old man out of the marquee of life. Is it the bait? It's okay, because you can't help but rush over, so I'm satisfied. The old man didn't want to believe that he just died in the hands of a young man. But staring at Xiaoyu's eyes revealed more relief, which made Xiaoyu unavoidable. At this moment, the killing stone seemed to be inspired by bursts of chills, and emotions such as anger, regret, and loneliness penetrated into Xiaoyu's body. Advertisement. Why do mom and dad only like my brother but not me? Ah, I am not a weirdo. I am not a weirdo. You are crazy. Why don't you believe me? Why those jujutsu teachers have inheritance, but I can only explore slowly, it's not fair. These emotions hovered in his ears like the whispers of the devil, making him irritable. Enough. Boom. Following Xiaoyu's roar, his fist hit the wallboard beside him like a cannonball. The scattered smoke and dust were as boring as his mood now. After calming down for a while, Xiaoyu received cursed spirits feedback. Didn't you kill that box man? Don't forget it, the important thing now is to hurry up and get together with Gojo Satoru and Ryuichi. Thinking of this, Xiaoyu felt a lower position and quickly left the teaching building. The box man lay on the top of the teaching building, looking at Xiaoyu who was leaving, and said in his heart, finally, he escaped safely. This task is too boring, almost confessed to my life. He now remembered that he was sober after being chased by the cursed spirit and was a little afraid. If it weren't for the large space outside to chase him, he might have died here. As for the old man, he died if he died. After all, people like them put their heads on their trouser belts to live. That person should live enough when he is so old. Are you looking for something? Just as the box man was about to leave, a voice rang from behind him. This cold voice was indescribably tortured, like countless sharp swords pierced into his nerves at the same time. At that moment, all the hairs on his body stood upside down, and a breath of cold rushed into his heavenly spirit to cover it, and even the headgear was lifted up a few inches because of the hair. Even the muscles on the body are uncontrollable and stiff together. Who is it? Yes, is Xiaoyu. Or Gojo Satoru. Could it be that? It's him. A figure like a demon in hell slowly appeared in his mind. He seemed to see a pair of cold white eyes, looking at himself, as if looking at another. Ants. The box man's brain frantically gave his limbs the command to escape, but at this time his body stood still on the spot like a lost contact. Get moving. Get moving. He is now like a dangerous goat, stiff and afraid of being unable to move in place. Zenin Ryuichi looked at the motionless figure of the box man lying on the ground, with a slight chuckle at the corner of his mouth. After making such a big noise, did the mouse still run out? Advertisement. Don't you know if someone talks to you and wants to look at each other? A bit of bitterness appeared in the box man's heart. Not to mention looking back, he can't even stand up now. His brain seemed to be completely separated from his body, and his consciousness was extremely clear, but he couldn't even move his body a little bit. He could only continue to lie on the ground, silently praying to Amaterasu for blessing in his heart. Step to step, the footsteps carry a somewhat peculiar melody, and every step he takes seems to be stepping on his heart. This made the already nervous boxer even more alarmed. Obviously, as the cursed teacher, he has hunted and killed many human beings, but at this moment he really wants to call for help. But his throat couldn't even make a whining sound. It seems that in front of the existence that is about to appear, he has even been deprived of the right to speak. This moment, the box man seemed to think of that summer when his young stumbled and fell into the sea, and the endless Dead Sea swallowed everything he had. Even with his consciousness, his soul seemed to be deeply buried in the non-existent nothingness by the Dead Sea. The desperate mood gradually increased with the sound of footsteps. His eyes were very wide open at this moment, and the eyeballs hidden inside seemed to come out in the next second. The brain was running crazily at this moment, and the breathing began to increase unconsciously, and gradually became uncontrollable. His body began to tremble on the ground involuntarily. The physical activity brought him not joy, but a deeper panic. I am. He tried to make a sound begging for mercy, but the muscle spasms made him unable to express a complete sentence at all. Do not. No, I can't breathe anymore. He pinched his neck with both hands, as if this could bring some help to his breathing. But this is all in vain. Some foam spurted from his mouth from time to time, and his eyes couldn't help but pour upwards. At the last moment of his life, he did not see the master of that voice. Pawn. The box man, called the 9 Lives Cat by Master Curse, was scared to death by a sound here. No one believes it. The sudden death of the box man made Ryuichi a little confused about the situation. If it hadn't been for the creature on the ground in the sense that it was already cold, he even suspected it was a trap. And interesting. I wanted to see a rather interesting guy in this original book, but I didn't expect it to be a coward. A gust of breeze blew, as if taking away the disappearance. On the roof, only a cold corpse was left. Chapter 248. Advertisement. The roof of the off-campus residence. Gojo Satoru and Yu were silent for a long time looking at the photos on their phones. Sorry, it was my mistake. Yu couldn't hold back in the end, closing her eyes, waiting for her partner's reprimand. It was originally that he and Heijing acted together. If he hadn't left first, Heijing would definitely not be taken away. It's okay, it's not a mistake. Gojo Satoru spread his hands, indicating that this matter is still under their control. As long as the initiative remains with them, there will be no problem. Small, just take the people back, right? Ryuichi's voice suddenly came from the side. The three of them looked at the sound source at the same time and found that Ryuichi was leaning on the wall, basking in the sun leisurely. Seeing Ryuichi's figure, the three of them couldn't help but breathe out a sigh of depression. It doesn't seem to be a big problem for Heijing to be caught, it's just a little troublesome for them. At the same time, Ryuichi's words also made Natsuyu, who was depressed, feel much better. Then I started discussing with Gojo Satoru about several issues that might arise next. After seeing Ryuichi, Riko's cheeks started to flush, even though she didn't know what happened to her, but she didn't hate this feeling. When they heard of Gojo Satoru, they were going to send her back to Jujutsu College, and could no longer restrain their emotions. I want to go with you. This stinky girl, when is she still playing tricks? Gojo Satoru was thinking about saving people, but he refused Riko's request without even thinking about it. The most important thing now is to send the astral body to Jujutsu College first so that they can have no worries. Even if you can get out of the black well. But what if you can't bring him back before assimilation? The concubine has never said goodbye to her. With tears in her eyes, Riko stared stubbornly at Gojo Satoru, holding her skirt involuntarily with her hands. I really do not want to see Sister Heijing. Gojo Satoru and Yuji were in a daze when seeing Riko like this. Do you really want to hurt a young girl in season for the old man Tianyuan? Gojo Satoru turned his attention to Ryuichi and found that he didn't seem to care about it. Yes, but we have a condition. If we find that the other party is very cunning, taking you with you will reduce the chance of survival of Heijing. We still have to focus on your safety and keep you in the college. On the contrary, if you cry and want to come back because you are scared on the road, then we will not agree. Are you ready? Gojo Satoru stared at Riko condescendingly. Those beautiful eyes were shining behind the sunglasses, as if he wanted to put pressure on Riko in this way, which made her feel scared. But surprisingly, Riko's eyes were full of determination, staring at his sunglasses unconvinced, and by the way, she wiped away the tears around her eyes with her hands. Advertisement. Kiss. An untimely ridicule broke the two of them looking at each other. Riko's face climbed red again, her eyes closed tightly, and she slapped her subconsciously. Gojo Satoru disappeared in place and appeared beside Ryuichi. If this slap is repeated, wouldn't his reputation in this life be lost? Ryuichi, something is wrong with you. 11 o'clock, Okinawa. Unexpectedly, this rescue operation was surprisingly smooth. I don't know if Master Tianyuan's assimilation will be so smooth. Yuji and Ryuichi walked at the back of the line, looking at the front. Gojo Satoru and Tien Riko were walking around the island like children. There was an inexplicable sorrow in my heart. Ryuichi glanced indifferently at the low-pressure Yu around him, probably knowing what he was thinking, but did not speak. Shall we stay here one more day? Not long after, Riko clutched her straw hat, jumped timidly in front of Ryuichi and Yu, and asked softly, just one day, okay. Riko didn't know why this thought came to him suddenly. Logically speaking, he is ready to be assimilated. But, after seeing Kuroi, Natsuyu, Gojo, and Ryuichi, something called hope came into her heart. Even if your own assimilation has become a fact, then carve this day into your own memory. I do not mind. Riko was overjoyed when she heard Ryuichi's answer, and then transferred the realization to Yuji. Yuji looked at her expression like a cat eager for love, and couldn't help but refuse. Okay, but I'm leaving at noon tomorrow. Great. After getting the consent of the two, Riko jumped to the beach again like a rabbit, happily enjoying the hard-won free time. Gojo Satoru, wearing a hoodie, suddenly appeared next to Ryuichi. Putting his right index finger against the sunglasses, he looked at Zenin Ryuichi playfully. Bingtuo's heart is moved. Ryuichi ignored his bad taste, but followed Yuji to find a comfortable place on the beach and lay down. Cut. Boring. After speaking, he ran to the beach to catch crabs with Riko.
Ha ha ha. Look, I caught a sea cucumber. Great sea cucumber.
Wow, looks so ugly. The two of them played at the beach until lunchtime.
Advertisement. Gojo Satoru kindly stewed the crab and sea cucumber he caught in a pot. When everyone was almost full, they divided these things into their bowls. Diaresis, do you dare to put it in my bowl? Gojo Satoru is secretly happy when he sees other people not talking.
It seems that his cooking level is pretty good.
It's just eaten here at Ryuichi. Are you threatening me? Ah, Gojo Satoru was not shocked, so he raised his hand and put the sea cucumber in it. Yep, the sea cucumber that should have appeared in Ryuichi's bowl suddenly appeared in Gojo Satoru's bowl for some reason. Hey, interesting. In this way, the seafood in the bowl of Gojo Satoru is getting more and more. The three people around couldn't help but laugh. After eating, Gojo Satoru and his group of four went shopping. When they learned that Ryuichi was going to stay on the beach, Riko showed disappointment on her face, and wanted to try to get Ryuichi with them in the most pitiful tone like the morning. But it turns out that this trick does not work. Doggone. Ryuichi closed his eyes and opened his arms, feeling the breath of the sea, Lila Jiao, and at this moment, there was peace in his heart. Tuogong didn't suspect him, and without a word, he swam deeper into the ocean. Suddenly patrol. A chill rushed straight into its forehead, and the perception of being a super cursed spirit was frantically reminding it, asking him to leave here as soon as possible, otherwise his life would be in danger. Happy time is always short, and time has come to this day of assimilation. When he opened his eyes again, the moon-white eyes stared straight into the depths of the sea, and the whole ocean looked like nothing in his eyes. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Ryuichi smelled a little bit of curse power in the sea breeze that should have been only a little fishy. All the creatures in the ocean appeared before his eyes. Ryuichi looked at Dogen, who was escaping quickly, but did not chase. It seems that the cursed spirit of water quality has been born, and the real guy should not have been born yet. I saw a humanoid cursed spirit that resembled an octopus in the depths of the ocean, dancing and celebrating something. Without those four people, the beach is undoubtedly much quieter. Unlike Riko's disappointment, Gojo Satoru has a look of excitement. Without Ryuichi's existence, isn't his charm still killing? Forget it, vacation is the most important thing. Frowning slightly, he smelled trouble. Yep. Chapter 249. Advertisement. We have entered the high school enchantment. Standing in the courtyard, Shaoyuji introduced the environment of the college to Lizzie. So you can rest assured. That's right. Riko raised her clenched fists, her eyes widened, and she looked at the surrounding buildings excitedly, seemingly not worried about what happened next. Heijing held his arms, and the smile on his original face no longer existed today. Looking at the energetic girl in front of him, a sorrow suddenly rushed from his chest to his eyes and nose. She raised her face hurriedly, not wanting Riko to see her sad look. Don't ask me for this kind of thing anymore. I don't want to be a babysitter anymore. When Ryuichi heard this, he couldn't help but blink Gojo Satoru. This guy has been using the name of his job to accompany Riko to run around the city. What is the confidence to make him say this? Suddenly, a strange curse burst out from the ground. Jump. As Ryuichi's voice sounded, the four figures disappeared in place. Bang. Boom boom boom. The earth began to vibrate, and the cracks crazily crawled around like a spider web. Ryuichi felt the power emerging from the ground. As the state religion, but it doesn't seem to be the same as the previous one. Ryuichi, Natsuyu, Kuroi, you take Riko to go in, I'm here to guard. Hearing this, several people didn't hesitate to turn around and rushed in towards the tunnel entrance. Gojo Satoru has learned the inversion warlock, and these guys are not even black. Ryuichi couldn't think of any reason Gojo would lose here. Jump. Ahahaha. No one wants to run. No one wants to run. The ground suddenly exploded, and a big man in a black hooded suit jumped out from below. His muscular muscles tightened his clothes, as if they would burst in the next moment. There was a silver pendant hanging on his chest. Look carefully. Like a portrait. After the big man appeared, there was not much nonsense. He held the pendant around his neck in his hand, and muttered words in his mouth. Gojo Satoru looked at the big man in front of him, with a hint of curiosity in his eyes. Is this the fanatic of the state religion that Ryuichi is talking about? Advertisement. It seems a little different. Thank you for letting me finish my prayer. In order to thank you for your kindness, I will send you back to help you evolve myself. After praying, the big man placed the pendant on the inside of his hood, and rushed towards Gojo Satoru at an extremely terrifying speed without waiting for the voice to fall. Gojo Satoru watched his attack, disdainful of the blue eyes of the sky. This stupid guy, even if he can't see the curse power, he doesn't seem to be great, right? I want to hit me with this kind of attack. If Ryuichi knows about this, I won't be laughed at. Before the big guy came, Gojo Satoru teleported out of his attack range. He didn't even bother to block this kind of straightforward physical attack. Why is there no impact? What? Gojo Satoru looked back, and saw the big man whistling from less than 10 meters behind him. The big man looked at Gojo Satoru's face with a stunned look, and his eyes couldn't help showing fanaticism. He was selected by the master and given the ability to attack and follow, and fighting in a big city may not be of much use. But fighting in such a small open area, he is a ruthless bulldozer. Seeing that Gojo Satoru was right in front of him, he kicked the ground again with his legs, increasing his original extremely fast speed again. There was a little red light from his body, and there was a little sonic boom in the air. Boom. Smoky. Come on. Come and join the evolution. The Lord will give you strength. This world needs to be recast. We are the masters of the new world. Only by joining us can you gain permanent happiness and supreme power. Looking at the destroyed building in front of him, the big man could no longer feel the signs of life inside. The fanaticism in his eyes began to grow wildly, and the original black and white eyes were gradually replaced by crimson. The intellect that was already a handful was gradually eroded by fanaticism. Oh, I almost got hit. Suddenly a joking voice rang behind him. When I saw Gojo Satoru standing in the air, holding his sunglasses in his right hand, with his mouth cocked, looking excitedly at the increasingly crazy man below. Advertisement. It seems that you people really have no brains, even our warlocks don't even know that they dare to come over and kill people. Gojo Satoru no longer wasted time. He took off his sunglasses with his left hand and put it in his pocket, raised his right hand and gestured, yelling softly, "Hey!" With the use of Jujutsu, an invisible force surged along the direction of Gojo Satoru's fingers. The huge shock wave directly blasted the ground into a huge pit with a diameter of about 7 meters. As for the big man, he has already disappeared. I accidentally made such a big pit, this time I don't know how much it will be allocated. However, it's kind of interesting that the enemy can sneak into the inside of the high-tech enchantment. Tianyuan. Gojo Satoru sat down on the side of the aisle. He didn't plan to go in because he believed that Ryuichi and Xiaoyu could deliver Riko safely. Oh, for the Jujutsu world. Ryuichi has already brought Xiaoyu and the others to the lowest level of the higher vocational college, the Shinto Shrine. Miss Riko, I may only be able to accompany you here. Heijing stood at the entrance of the passage and did not intend to go further, on the one hand because she was not qualified to go in. On the other hand, she had already regarded Riko as her relatives, and she couldn't bear this kind of behavior of decimating the lives of her relatives by herself. She is afraid. She was really afraid of pulling Riko away at the end. Her nose was sour, and tears could not be held, although she didn't want Riko to see herself like this at the last moment. But, who can bear it? Riko stared at Heijing, who was not far away. She wanted to shout as usual, "Sister Heijing, let's go home." But this sentence was stuck in the throat like a fishbone. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't say it. In the end, she could only rush up, holding Heijing in tears and shouting, "I like you the most." After saying this, Riko didn't look back, grabbing Natsumi and Ryuichi's hands and rushing into the depths of the tunnel. Heijing weakly leaned on the wall, his eyes lost, as if the strength of his body had been taken away, only tears fell like raindrops. The three of them ran all the way to the outside of the main hall of Xingxing Palace. Xiaoyuji and Ryuichi looked at each other, nodded, pointed to the place in front of them, and said, "There is the place where Master Tianyuan held the assimilation ceremony. You only need to follow this passage all the way down to get there. Only the summoned can pass. Before the assimilation ceremony begins, there will be someone responsible for protecting you." When Xiaoyu said this, her voice paused, and she looked back at Riko, who was full of ambition, with a peaceful smile on her face. Or turn around now and go back with us. Chapter 250. Advertisement. In the day, Riko stared at the two people in front of her with wide eyes. Was there an auditory hallucination just now? Can I really go back? When Mr. Yaga released the task to us again, he used the word erasure instead of assimilation, as you said. This is to imply that this is a sin for us. Xiaoyuji gradually put away the smile on his face, and looked seriously at Tien Riko's eyes. Now tell me, do you accept the so-called assimilation or follow us back? No matter what you choose, we can guarantee your future. Within days, Riko was moved by Xiaoyuji's words and was speechless. I turned my attention to Ryuichi blankly. Ryuichi is still as lazy as he used to be, as if everything in the world can hardly be put on his mind. I don't care, the house of everything principle, as long as you pay, you are the employer. For Tianliza, Ryuichi is not very interested, but if you can use this to test Tianyuan, it would be good. Riko finally believed what was happening before her eyes. When I was taken away by Sister Heijing, I knew that one day I would be assimilated by Master Tianyuan. I also keep telling myself that as long as I am assimilated, I can forget the pain of losing my parents and the loneliness of losing friends. Speaking of this, Riko's mind gradually came to mind what had happened in recent years. There are gentle and considerate Sister Heijing, cheerful classmates, and serious and lovely teacher. It turns out I still have so many people worried about. It turns out I am so reluctant to leave this world. The picture in my mind finally freezes at the moment when everyone had lunch together in Okinawa. At that time, how I wished that time could stay at that moment forever. Now the wish seemed to be fulfilled, and a smile finally appeared on Lizzie's face. But the tears in her eyes poured down like a collapsed dam, taking away the infinite sadness in her heart. But as expected, I still can't deceive myself. I still want to stay with everyone. I want to go to the seaside of Okinawa to catch crabs again. I want to go shopping in the city center. I want to be able to vent my emotions unscrupulously. I want to be with you forever. Riko finally shouted out her wish, and no longer had to suppress it in her heart. Both hands took a coin out of the clothes and patted it on Zenin Ryuichi's hand. Feeling the temperature on the coin, Ryuichi placed the coin silently. Advertisement. This coin represents more than money, it also represents a girl's future. Taking people's money and helping others to eliminate disasters is the purpose of my house of everything. Let's go. Yep. In the day, Riko happily placed both hands in Sha Yuji's hands. This time, she was holding Sha Yuji's hand with joy in her heart, but her face was not covered with red clouds as usual. But it doesn't matter anymore, what's important is that they are going home. The neat footsteps of the three echoed in the empty tunnel. Although the footsteps were neat, one could still hear the joy of one of them. At the entrance of the tunnel, He Jing sat slumped on the ground, curled up, leaning on the wall, staring blankly at the empty tunnel in front of him. One of her sisters walked in from here, may never come out again. She wants to wait here for Ryuichi and Natsuyu to return. Sister Heijing, I'm back. The familiar voice appeared in her ear again. Is it the hallucinations caused by overmissing? Unexpectedly, this situation will happen again after becoming a jujutsu teacher. The arms that were originally on the ground wrapped around his legs, hugging them tightly in his arms. It seems that the only way to give yourself more warmth. Tatata. A cheerful footstep interrupted her thoughts. Sister Heijing, why did you ignore me when I told you just now? Yep, not an illusion. He suppressed the excitement in his heart, slowly raised his head and looked at the familiar smile. She couldn't believe it was true, and she stretched out her trembling hands, seeming to want to confirm it. But in the end it didn't touch it. Are you Master Tianyuan or Miss Riko? Riko looked at the sister Heijing who wanted to touch but didn't dare to touch, and could only ask carefully. Tears broke the bank again and hugged him directly. It's me, I'm Tien Riko, Sister Kuroi, let's go home. Heijing felt the temperature on his shoulders, and his dry eyes became moist again. Seeking flowers. Advertisement. Walk around, go home and go home. Ouch. Heijing had been curled up on the ground for too long, and he was weak when he was together. Seeing this, Riko immediately flicked Kuroi's arm on his shoulder. I want to go out together in this posture. Kurojing originally wanted to refuse, but seeing Riko's firm eyes, she stopped saying much. Ryuichi and Sha Yuji watched this scene from behind, and didn't mean to come forward to help. Kuroi and Riko need this short time to sort out the relationship between the two. Originally, Kuroi's identity was similar to that of a protector, but during this time, the relationship between her and Riko broke away from the relationship between protection and being protected. Even before entering the tunnel, the two vented all the depressed feelings in their hearts. Is there a better chance to deepen the relationship between the two than now? Soon, the four people walked out of the channel after two in front and two in the back. Looking at Gojo Satoru lying on the side and resting. Sorrow, we are back. Sha Yuji looked at the big pits that appeared on the ground, and knew that Gojo Satoru used her in the battle. This attack is too wide, Yaga teacher clearly told him not to use it lightly when not in a crisis. This time I don't know how much to eat and make trouble. Well, are you back? Faster than I expected. Gojo Satoru fiddled with his sunglasses, staring at Riko next to Kuroi with blue eyes, and found that it was the same as when he entered. He shifted his gaze to the sky again, and put on the sunglasses again, with the corners of his mouth cocked, as if there was something interesting in the sky that others couldn't see. Oops. Heijing's face suddenly turned pale, and she realized a very serious problem. They brought out Tien Riko, who was a stellar body, so what should Master Tien Yuan do? Do you really want to be hostile to Master Tianyuan because of your own selfish desires? But now she knows where Riko is in her heart, she doesn't want to experience the pain of losing a loved one again. Hearing Heijing's worry, Sha Yuji smiled slightly, raised his hand to lift the hair that was blown away by the wind, and raised his head like Gojo Satoru, looking at the blue sky. Don't you just fight him, you know. We are invincible, too.